Okay, we're live.
Please rise as you are able. I now call this meeting of City Council to order.
We acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional land of the Anishinaabeg people. Anishinaabeg include the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. We're dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people. You may be seated. Welcome to Barrie City Council. I'd like to remind everybody at the outset, of course, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, City Council is continuing to practice physical distancing. And members of council, the executive management team, and city clerk are participating via video conference. Members of the senior leadership team that have items on tonight's agenda are not visible, but are available to answer any questions. Before we get started, I wanted to welcome Craig Gillespie to the city of Barrie. Craig just recently joined the city on June 2nd as the Senior Manager, Corporate Finance and Investments. Craig is a Fellow of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries and a Fellow of the Society of Actuaries. He has 20 years of experience in the municipal and private sectors, with the last 6 years at York Region. In his role at York Region, Craig was responsible for York Region's annual fiscal strategy, which includes forecasting long-term debt reserves and managing the affordability of the region's capital plan. He has a postgraduate degree in actuarial science from Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh and a Bachelor of Arts in Finance from Strathclyde in Glasgow. Welcome to the city of Barrie, Craig, and to tonight's virtual meeting. Also, it appears to be the policy that everybody in the finance department eventually will need to be named Craig. Not true. Okay, confirmation of the minutes is the first item on the agenda. The minutes of the City Council meeting held May 31st, 2021 have been circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, the minutes are adopted as printed and circulated. We have a number of deputations tonight. We had several that came in before the deadline. We also have 2 emergency deputation requests, members of council. They are from Ryan Hawks and Stefano Agostino concerning motion 21G 166 for the Barrie Landmark Sign. As those deputation requests were received after the printing of the public agenda, a vote in favor by the majority of council is required in order for those deputations to be allowed. So I'll call the question. Those in favor of allowing the deputations, please indicate. Nobody is opposed. That carries unanimously, as it usually does. Okay, the first deputation request is related to motion 21G 159, change to the number of days fireworks of any kind or description can be discharged or set off as currently permitted in the Consolidated Regulatory By-laws. I will now call on Kathy Colbatch to deliver her deputation. She wished to speak to this item. Ms. Colbatch, welcome to Barrie City Council, and in accordance with our procedural bylaw, I remind you, you have a maximum of 5 minutes for your deputation. Go ahead, welcome.
Thank you. And I heard Ryan earlier, so go Habs, go. All right. Mayor Lehman and members of council. I would like to speak in support of Councillor Kungle's motion to reduce the number of days of fireworks can be let off. As a resident of Ward 8 in Allendale, we are very near the waterfront and Bayview Drive. Bayview Drive, which acts as a canyon, boomeranging noise all over our neighborhoods. I personally have called police well after midnight to complain, but trying to establish where the noise is exactly becomes a problem for enforcement. I suspect all wards that are near the water are all having the same issues. Residents need to be respectful of their neighbors when lighting fireworks off, which is not happening currently. People have gone overboard. From May until snow flies, fireworks go off at random hours and for no apparent reason. This is distressing to everyone. Babies, young children and families, elderly, those with anxiety or other conditions, seniors, shift workers, you get the idea. We know enforcement can be an issue, but perhaps stronger education about the bylaws in the days, weeks leading up to the actual approved days could help make a difference. Our community response team from Barrie Police Services could also perhaps patrol neighborhoods that are known for these issues currently after midnight. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Colbatch. And I note you are our next two deputation requests as well, so why don't we just keep you on the call and keep going. I know you also asked to speak to the speed limit on Lakeshore Drive between Simcoe and Tiffin. That's motion 21G 164. So go ahead, you have another 5 minutes.
Okay. Mayor Lehman and members of council. I am in support of the request for a staff report on issues of speeding and noise along Lakeshore between Tiffin and Simcoe, but I wonder if we might extend it as far as Minutes Point. I thought a pilot project to document data, both speed and noise, this summer was a good idea, especially after the volumes of traffic last summer, and I'm sure again this summer. This is not just a Ward 2 issue. Anyone that lives around the bay can hear what is happening along the lakeshore. Noise echoes across the bay. In Ward 8, we can hear the music at Meridian Place during summer festivals, including the speeding and noisy vehicles. We often get groups of motorcyclists who blow through the four-way intersection at the corner of Bayview and Cumberland in large groups of 7 to 10, speeding along Milburn to Essa Road and then across Lakeshore in either direction. Councillor Jim Harris is correct in saying this issue is also seasonal. During our busy spring, summer, fall season, traffic almost self-regulates because of the volumes during the daytime hours. However, after folks leave the beach area around 6 p.m. onward till after bar closing, speed and noise are an issue for residents, especially the illegal cars and motorcycles. Regular enforcement is a must. Our beachfront is becoming increasingly popular, almost overcrowded much of the time. There is danger if traffic flow is going above 40 to families trying to park along the lakeshore, leave and return to their vehicles. Have you ever witnessed a father or mother trying to handle kids, coolers, chairs, noodles while keeping safe? We need, as a city, to seriously consider changes to the speed limit or have traffic enforcement along our waterfront as a part of our regular routine. Again, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much, Ms. Colbatch. And you can go first on the third item as well. We do have 4 deputations on this. And this is with regards to motion 21G 164, Barrie Landmark Sign. I will call out the names listed on the City Council agenda, which will be the first 2 that were registered in advance, and then the 2 emergency deputations can go 3rd and 4th. And just a reminder to deputants to limit your remarks to the item that is on the agenda. That is the procedure around deputations, speaking to the item that's the motion that's on the agenda. Sorry, we will do Ms. Colbatch first, and then we have Alyssa Wright, then Ryan Hawks, then Stefano Agostino. There we go. Okay, Ms. Colbatch, you have another 5
Mayor
minutes.
Lehman, members of council and staff. I want to start off by saying that I can appreciate Councillor McCann's passion, enthusiasm, and love of Barrie and his ongoing commitment to make a more vibrant Barrie. However, parks are for people, not signs. Many residents, including myself, do not agree with the location, design, or intent of what this brings to the city. We are in the process of creating a new master plan for Heritage Park, and I just completed a survey that did not include this sign. Many believe the Heart Barrie sign does not represent our city well. Perhaps if we engage the community, we could come up with something more original, creative, and truly representative of our city. The location of Heritage Park is a small urban park that presents us with many opportunities to fish, to swim, the children's splash pad, existing public art, the ponds, benches, trees, gardens, and fireplaces. This park is really a more passive, reflective space, unlike Meridian Square. The connection between the 2 spaces already exists. Residents are proud and fierce when it comes to our waterfront, as council well knows. Given the importance of Heritage Park to the overall community it represents, public engagement is imperative. Bigger is not always better. Perhaps if this was to go ahead, the size could be reduced, allowing it to be placed elsewhere with a different design. The sign, as is, would be dominant on our waterfront. Our waterfront natural shoreline looking across the bay is what should be dominant, not a sign. Perhaps a local competition for the design, engaging local artists, and allowing the public to vote on their favorite design, if this is approved and could be incorporated. Let's celebrate our Indigenous community permanently. An Indigenous design with meaning, representing earth, wind, water, and fire, or the medicine wheel. Perhaps the message that, imagine the message that would send instead of the word Barrie, or translated into Ojibwe. Just another idea. Imagine the possibilities. This seems really rushed with no public engagement, and I encourage you to consider my comments before voting to approve tonight. And I wanted to read, in case council hasn't had an opportunity to have a look at the Barrie Today article, there was a letter to the editor that I would like to make comment on. I love Barrie. This is why we moved back to our hometown to retire after 50 years. We love living where we can admire the view of the beautiful Heritage Park every day and every night. Please do not spoil the natural beauty with crass, third-rate Barrie sign. I'm sorry, those aren't my words. I'm just reading what was in the letter. I lived in the city of beautiful Kingston on Lake Ontario for 9 years, and I note that they did not spoil their beautiful waterfront natural lakeshore with the sign. It is located in front of City Hall. Toronto did not spoil their lakeshore with the sign. It is in front of City Hall. Obviously, the Barrie Canoe Club or Military Park would not appreciate having the sign, spoiling the ambience there. The installations in Kingston and Toronto were first-rate architectural designs with extensive landscaping, unique to their environment. There is currently a professional plan design underway in Barrie to make Heritage Park a more beautiful, natural, accessible place for people to quietly gather. Why spoil it with a plastic sign? I realize it's not plastic. If we must have a sign, there are great artists in Barrie. Why not have a design that is unique to Barrie, like the Spirit Catcher? Open Dunlop Street on Saturdays attracts thousands of people who enjoy shopping, eating, and drinking at our many venues, as well as relaxing at Heritage Park, Meridian Place, and walking on the trails around Kempenfelt Bay. Centennial Park location does not need any help attracting tourism. It appears that the purpose of the sign is to provide a platform for Councillor McCann. And then there was also sent today, I had a conversation with Al McNair, And I believe he also sent an email to the city as well. And I want to make comment if I have time to
You've got about
read
one
what
more
Al.
minute. Yep,
Pardon?
one more minute. One more
Okay.
minute.
Okay. There has been much study and public discussion at Barrie's waterfront parks over the last number of years. I understand the waterfront and marina strategic plan is to be reviewed starting later this year. I do not recall any suggestion in the master plan of locating a large Heart Barrie sign in our waterfront parks. I'm not quite sure how this sign would become our city's first own Barrie landmark, since the waterfront has been graced by the iconic Spirit Catcher sculpture since 1987, and more recently joined by its sister sculpture, the Sea Serpent, in 2016. Are these not already Barrie's own landmarks? Conversely, the idea of a big sign says to me, so Hollywood, so what? Like big box stores, such signs seem to be more and more common and could be anywhere, certainly not something unique to Barrie. Public donations of $200,000 are to be solicited for this structure, along with the installation, security, and maintenance cost. In view of all the comments above, I believe our waterfront is important enough that Barrie citizens should be consulted and their views considered by council throughout a public process before a final decision is made to proceed with the signed project. And that is all I have to say. So thank you for your time and consideration this evening.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Kolvich. I did not ask if there were questions because I knew you had 3 deputations. I wasn't sure there would be any on the first 2, but I will now ask members of council if you have any questions of the deputant on any of her 3 deputations. Okay, seeing none, Ms. Kolvich, thank you again for being here and giving us your views on those matters. Next up tonight, we have Alyssa Wright on the on motion 21G164, Heart Barrie Landmark Sign. In accordance with our procedural bylaw, Ms. Wright, you have up to 5 minutes for your deputation.
Excellent. You guys can hear me?
We can.
Perfect. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. My name is Alyssa Wright, and I am a musician, educator, writer, and performer who made Barrie her home just over 7 years ago. Some of you have since come to know me as one of the original admins of Barrie Families Unite, board member of Glowing Hearts Charity, advocate for the Women and Children's Shelter, and Child and Youth Advocacy Council. And I think some of you regularly curse my name as one of the founding members of Engage Barrie. All of which is to say, I am passionate about the creative arts and I'm passionate about community, both of which lead me tonight to give a deputation against installing this unartistic, unoriginal, and uninspiring copycat sign. There was much talk last week about not making this debate personal, and I agree. As you know, I'm a big fan of the city's code of conduct. But what seems to have gotten lost in the discussion is this: politics is personal. Whether a choice made at council directly affects a Barrie resident on a personal level or sends a clear personal message to an individual or group, every single decision the 11 of you make in city council is deeply personal to the people of Barrie. Now, I'm just speaking as myself tonight, but when I make decisions for or speak up on behalf of any of the organizations I mentioned previously, I do so only after listening carefully to the people I am there to represent, which, frankly, is something I wish I saw more of from those of you who continue to ignore the overwhelming majority of residents who do not want this sign. You've received a staggering amount of feedback against it. Several people, including myself, have already written or spoken up about what makes this sign personal to many in this city. I'm not going to reiterate that feedback, though I did repost my open letter earlier today if anyone wants a refresher. But once again, I ask you all to consider what personal message you are giving with your vote, should you choose to uphold the wishes of your colleague instead of the wishes of the vast majority of your constituents. You were each entrusted with these positions on council in order to serve the greater good of the people of Barrie, not serve each other. And yes, I understand that sometimes council needs to make difficult choices, often going against popular opinion in order to serve that greater community. But there's been no evidence of this project actually serving anyone. The weak claims that this sign in Heritage Park will somehow help downtown businesses have not been backed up. There's been no analysis of what funds our landmark spirit catcher has brought to downtown businesses, nor the recent Heart and Horn public art installation, nor how yet another landmark structure might add to what our existing ones are already contributing to the city. Now, don't get me wrong, I am in no way saying that public art's worth should be solely judged by the funds it generates, but if this is your claim, then there should be something of substance offered to back that claim up. Unsubstantiated assurances do not offer any relief from the very real struggles downtown businesses and residents are going through now. What personal message are you giving these constituents when the city refuses to allow a community fridge on city property due to liability, something that would directly and personally assist many Barrie residents through food insecurity in a time of great need? Yet you don't bat an eye about offering to include this structure under the city's blanket insurance policy. A structure that kids will definitely be climbing over, a structure whose lighting would be a hazard to navigation, disorienting boaters entering the Barrie Marina after dark. A structure that several people have openly threatened to vandalize as soon as it's installed because they are so angry that council has ignored everyone's very personal wishes. I've already expressed how much I love the Code of Conduct, and I'm also a big fan of the Municipal Elections Act, which states that candidates are not allowed to use city facilities or equipment in their campaigns, nor are they allowed to fundraise outside of the campaign period. Considering the councillor bringing this project forward has previously and consistently used "Loving Barrie" as his personal brand and campaign slogan, installing a sign with this slogan in an election year after raising the money for it in the previous year would set the candidate up for violation of the Elections Act, which I'm sure is not his intention.
Mayor Lehman, point of order. That's an unsubstantiated claim by the deputant, and if she felt so this way, if she claims she's such an expert in the Code of Conduct, she knows a proper resource to make that, not in a deputation to muddy the waters. That's inappropriate.
Thanks, Councilor Morales. Ms. Wright, your time is also almost up. I will ask you to return to the matter of whether you think the sign should go ahead or not, rather than the candidate's or the councillor's political ambitions. Go ahead.
Just clarification, I was not referring to the Code of Conduct. It was the Municipal Elections Act, but I will skip that section and move to the end. Skipping through that part. The city is being asked to pay at least $15,000 annually for this sign's ongoing maintenance and operational costs, a sum of money that could easily pay for a brand new mural each year or any number of true community projects. Politics is personal. Council's choices are personal.
Mayor Lehman,
personal message does each of you want to give?
Mayor Lehman, point of order. Even with the 20-minute interruption, we're now nearing 6 minutes on this deputation.
Thanks, Councilor Morales. I've already told Ms. Wright to wrap up, and Ms. Wright, could you make your final remark, please?
Politics is personal. Council's choices are personal. What personal message does each of you want to give the citizens, staff, women, and voters of the city of Barrie? Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Wright. Any questions of the deputant from members of council? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your deputation, Ms. Wright. Our next deputant is Ryan Hawks. Mr. Hawks, welcome to Barrie City Council. In accordance with our procedural bylaw, you have a maximum of 5 minutes for your deputation.
Thank you so much. You guys can all hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm so happy to be here, guys. I'm really excited to be here. And I'd just like to start by saying, I really love Barrie. And I'm going to tell you guys why I love Barrie. I moved here 9 years ago from the East Coast. I'm not going to bore you with my whole story, but I moved here with a very small amount of money to start over. I knew nobody. And in a couple of years, I was able to increase my business and I made a lot of money. I helped a lot of people and I've had a lot of fun. I went on to raise $3 million over the last 5 years to open up a gym called Athletic Culture. It's a 23,000 square foot facility, and we've created 50 jobs in Barrie. I've also just launched a marketing company in Barrie. I'm highly invested in Barrie. I love it. When I moved here 9 years ago, I have a bit of an accent. I think I've lost it over the years. People used to say to me, where are you from? And I'd say, oh, I moved from the East Coast. And they'd say, why did you move to Barrie? And I'd look at them and I'd say, you grew up here, didn't you? People forget when they grow up somewheres how much beauty there is within a community. No matter what community you're in, you forget because you tie your negative relationships, the things that happened to you in high school and the things that happened to you in that community. In this time, we need more hope. We need more prosperity. We need innovation. We need creativity. Is this sign the thing that's going to economically change? No, but it's a droplet in the ocean. And an ocean is made by droplets. This is a positive movement, whether it's Councillor McCann or any other councillor that brought it forward. Now, I'm always open to debate on colors, signs, location, where it should be put. All those different things are always up for where it should be placed. And I think that's something the community should vote on. But when someone makes a movement of positivity, I don't believe in being anti anything. It doesn't get us anywheres. You should be pro what it is you believe in, whatever that is, with all your heart. Now, this is a community and the community should decide on it. But I do not see the negativity to bringing this sign. When I opened Athletic Culture, I actually paid $30,000 to have a hand-drawn artist come in and draw a mural of Terry Fox and different athletes from around the world on our wall, simply because we know in these times that people are going to stand in front of that, take a picture, put it on social media, geofence it. That's all this is. That's what a part of this is about. It's not only just a sign. It's about people getting in front of it. It's about big companies getting in front of it and creating morale in the downtown. It's showing that someone stepped up and took the initiative to raise some money to try to get people involved, to do something that's a droplet in the ocean of positivity, to bring something beautiful to Barrie. And it's going to inspire other people to try to get involved in charities, to maybe put their own artwork up, to do different movements, and to believe that, hey, the community can come together and really do something beautiful. And I just believe that this is one step in the right direction. And that's what makes a community great, is people trying to do, whether it's small or it's big, as long as there's positivity behind it and it's not hurting anybody, and the person taking the responsibility to do it themselves and not leaning financially on the community to get it started. And there's a positive movement behind it, and it's somebody that's willing to take the movement on. Every time you try to do something great, there's always going to be people point fingers and say you're doing it because you want to do it for yourself, you want to look good. And sometimes that's maybe intentions behind it. But if there's positive repercussions afterwards, then I think that people should get behind it and support it. Everybody's going to have different feelings on this topic. I don't see the negative side to this. I do think that there should be a lot of input on how it should look, where the design is done. There should be a breakdown of financially where the $200,000 is going to be spent exactly, to make sure that everybody knows how their money is going to be used. That should be very transparent to the people that are putting the money in. And I think people should understand that this is a beautiful thing. When you go to Blue Mountain, you see people lined up getting pictures in front of it. You go to Toronto, you see people lined up. This is something that people can be proud of our waterfront. Now, there's ladies that spoke before about the beautiful waterfront. There's some really good comments there, and they made some good points. But at the end of the day, that rock at the waterfront has been there for 1,000 years. Human innovation is the CN Tower. It's different things. This is a green thing. This can be done. It's not going to hurt the birds. This is not going to hurt the waterfront. And I think that artwork and what beautiful artwork is nothing more than a perception of what you consider beautiful, what I might consider beautiful. So I think at the end of the day, this is a positive movement. And I think that it can be done cordially. And I think it's a movement in the right direction. And I can only hope that it inspires other young people to want to do something similar in their own movement and see the community get behind them and support it. So that's my story with why I love Barrie. And I think that it's a positive thing.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Hawks. Any questions, Councillor McCann?
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and to Mr. Hawks. I couldn't stop but comment on your passion, and I wanted to clarify. Did you say you just moved to Barrie 9 years ago and you've got 50 employees right now?
Yeah, correct.
I just have one question for you. Do you think that Athletic Culture will come down to the Love Barrie sign and you'll take a picture of it? And would you put that picture in your business?
Absolutely.
And why would you do that?
I believe in bringing people together, and I believe in the power of social media, and I believe in supporting this city. I want more people to move here. My parents still live in the East Coast. My brother both my brothers live in the East Coast, and my sister lives in New York. And I'm always telling them about how great the city is and how beautiful the city is. you know, and I think we're heading in the right direction. I would love to corral my business together, not only to promote my own business, but to promote the city. And it's just a great opportunity. It's a landmark for us to stand in front of. Yes, we can take a great picture at the waterfront right now, and it's a beautiful thing, but this is something that just adds to it. Doesn't make Barrie. It's a combination of small things, Councillor McCann, that makes it great. And that's why we would take those pictures.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, members of council? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your deputation, Mr. Hawks. I will now call on Stefano Agostino as our final deputation on the same matter, motion 21G164, the Barrie sign. Mr. Agostino, welcome to Barrie City Council. In accordance with our procedural bylaw, you have up to 5 minutes for your deputation.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Good evening. Myself, I am a local business owner in downtown Barrie. I have grown up in the heart of downtown Barrie my whole life. My family had started an establishment back in '96, and I have grown up my whole life in downtown. So I like to think as myself as a staple down there. And I'd like to encourage council to approve this landmark sign. For not only does it boost morale, it is a great addition to Barrie. An idea like this puts us on the same track as some of the most iconic cities or highly visited tourism spots, such as Blue Mountain, Friday Harbor, Amsterdam, Toronto, Kingston, Ottawa, as well as the Distillery District in downtown Toronto. Being a local downtown business owner, you are faced with many challenges, such as drawing in new tourism, as well as maintaining the repeat of that tourism, along with maintaining residents' interest in the downtown core. This is not just a one-time photo opportunity sign in my eyes. This is a sign that many people in our community will probably take multiple pictures within time. A sign like this could help celebrate many special occasions, such as Pride, with represented colors through each letter, as well as as well as Canada Day. Who wouldn't want to take a picture with a sign lit up, possibly waving like the Canadian flag? That's patriotic to me when I see that. During wintertime, you could have a beautiful digital Disney Frozen theme during Winter Fest and demonstrate it. So then that way children could take pictures with it and keep that for memories for time after time. In Heritage Park, we see it every year, prom. So many people come down and celebrate their prom, and they take so many photos in that park. What better way than take a photo in front of I Love Barrie and have their school colors posted throughout that whole sign? It just adds a great morale and adds memories. A goal without a plan is just a dream. I am a man of action, and I will do whatever it takes to help make Barrie great. I like to think I've done what I can. I'm involved in many youth school programs, such as art programs. I feature a lot of art within my establishments. And many of the students that I talk to always say, nobody is to judge any form of art as untasteful. And therefore, to me, I don't think this is an untasteful piece of art. I think all art has its uniqueness to it. Aside of being a downtown business owner, we try on thinking of new innovative ways of marketing our businesses, as well as the downtown core. And this is such a wonderful idea, not only for tourists in Barrie, but for new and existing residents to enjoy. I think to myself, once we are back to normal and we are showcasing Thursday night movies or concerts in Meridian Square, how much fun it would be for kids and parents to see a lit up sign with multiple themes to it at any given time. It is my understanding that a lot of these signs are made with such materials that require such little maintenance possible that they are almost self-sustainable all year round. We have seen that proven with a lot of the signs that I've mentioned. I've heard the maintenance costs of these signs can be as little as $500 to $6,000 a year, and it has been proven through some of those individual signs. To me, that is a very small price to pay to see a lot of smiles and memories for our residents and tourists to create. As a citizen of Barrie and an owner in Barrie, I see no issues in wanting to add a sponsored sign that does not cost taxpayer dollars any money and is extremely low cost. I actually commend any councillor that uses that outside of the box thinking. With that being said, I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight, Council. I do strongly feel good about the sign, and I love Barrie as well. So thank you again.
Thanks, Mr. Agostino. Any questions? Councillor McCann.
Stefano, thank you very much. I actually know Stefano personally, and he actually has a small business downtown Barrie called Pizza. And the reason why I bring that up, because I'd actually ask you a direct question. Do you believe that this Love Barrie sign will generate more income for your business through local or tourism dollars coming down that sign?
Absolutely. Any addition to the downtown core, such as this sign, is additional income. It creates tourism, it creates traffic. Therefore, traffic comes to our businesses. It's a great thing.
And I know you're affiliated with the downtown businesses, the core. I'm not sure if you're on the BAA or not. I don't know, but I'm just curious. Talking to the small businesses, the businesses that are downtown on Dunlop Street and around the area, has there been any chatter about the Love Barrie sign? And without getting too specific, would you say it's positive or negative?
It's positive.
Thank you very much. I really do appreciate you coming on board and representing small business in downtown Barrie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the deputant? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Agostino. We will move on now to the committee reports. Deputy Mayor Ward, I believe you have the motions.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated May 31st, 2021 is circulated be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee Report, May 31st, 2021 is circulated be received. This is to receive the report of the confidential personal information matter, executive management team performance management. It's to receive the report from that meeting. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of receiving Section A. Anybody opposed? None. That carries. Section B, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee Report dated May 31st, 2021 is circulated to be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Section B of the General Committee Report, May 31st, 2021 is circulated be adopted. This is with regards to EMT performance management. Comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of Section B? Opposed? Okay, that carries. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Planning Committee Report dated June 1st, 2021 is circulated be received.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Planning Committee Report dated June 1st, 2021 as circulated to be received. This is to receive the public meetings, report of the public meetings that were held on June 1st. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of receiving Section A? Any opposed? That carries, sorry, and it is Section A and the only section from the Planning Committee Report. We will now move on to the General Committee Report from June 7th. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated June 7th, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee Report from June 7th as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to the cycling network expansion, development charge update study, sale of city-owned land in Ward 8, investigation of safety measures on Penetanguishene Road. This is the fireworks motion, change to the number of days fireworks can be discharged, and the investigation of a three-way stop at the intersection of Crawford and Patterson. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of section A, please indicate. Are any opposed? None, that carries. Section B, please. Have we got section B, Deputy Mayor Ward?
Sorry about that. Guess nobody reads lips here. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section B of the General Committee report dated June 7th, 2021 is circulated be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section B of the General Committee report dated June 7th as circulated be received. This is to receive the presentation concerning the Transportation Asset Management Plan. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of receiving section B. Any opposed? None. That carries. Thank you. Section C, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section C of the General Committee report dated June 7th, 2021 as circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section C of the General Committee report dated June 7th as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to the 2022 business plan and budget directions. This is the Barrie Police Services Board direction within that motion. Councillor Gary Harvey, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. In order to meet my legislative requirements under Section 17, Sub 3 of the Police Services Act, I will not participate in the vote or any discussions in this matter.
Thank you. It is moved, by Deputy Mayor Ward, and seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Harvey. Madam Clerk, has Councillor Harvey's conflict been noted?
Yes, Mayor Lehman, it has.
Okay, with those movers and seconders, are there any comments? None. Okay, I'll call the question. Those in favor of section C? Any opposed? None. That is unanimous by those voting. Section D, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section D of the General Committee report dated June 7th, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section D of the General Committee report dated June 7th as circulated be adopted. This is the balance of the budget directions motion, section D. Any comments or questions on section D? Seeing none, those in favor of section D, please indicate. Any opposed? None. That carries. Section E, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section E of the General Committee report dated June 7th, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Section E of the General Committee report dated June 7th as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to the speed limit on Lakeshore between Simcoe and Tiffin. Comments or questions on section E? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of section E, please indicate. And opposed? 1. That carries. Section F.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section F of the General Committee report dated June 7th, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section F of General Committee report June 7th be adopted as circulated be adopted. This is the deferral of the appointment to the Council Compensation Review Committee. It's deferred to next Monday. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of section F? Any opposed? None. That carries. Section G, please.
By myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section G of the General Committee report dated June 7th, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that section G of the General Committee report dated June 7th as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to the Barrie Landmark Sign. Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to table an amendment.
Okay, go ahead.
Tabled by myself and I believe seconded by Councillor Elwin, that there be a modification to bullet 1, that we remove Heritage Park and identify City Hall, and I can speak to that.
Okay, we have an amendment moved by Councillor Kungle, seconded by Councillor Aylwin to change the location to City Hall. Go ahead, Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, and I'm tabling this just in acknowledgement to see where Council might sit on consideration of change of location. As we heard from Deputants and other members, at least I have, I believe Ms. Kobach spoke to this and pointed out where some of the signage that has been done in other municipalities did gravitate towards a city hall location. Hearing other individuals that also made deputations tying to the downtown. Should this go forward, maybe it's an opportunity for us to tie City Hall into Collier, into Dunlop, into the waterfront, and support that navigation that we've been talking about through several plans. So I'm interested in consideration of a change in location, City Hall being one that comes to mind. And I do think that could respect what we're hearing from other residents around the master plan being underway and protecting some of our natural heritage and moving the sign out of an area that seems to be of concern around location.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Kungle. On the amendment, Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. On the amendment, I won't be supporting the amendment for a couple of reasons. So number one is the purpose of putting the sign by the water, by the Heritage Park, is that it gets a view, a background, and appreciation of the water. There's a functional perspective. It didn't just get put there as an afterthought or as a desire to be destructive towards the natural ecosystem. Which, by the way, the feedback that we had from residents back in 2016, half were in favor of programming space and half were in favor of leaving it completely naturalized and barren. So that's actually quite the split there. So we're leveraging waterfronts that other cities don't have. Number two, City Hall right now, that space is used by the farmers market, plain and simple. Yes, I fully support Mayor Lehman's and past council members and current council members' desire to see a permanent farmers market. But right now, that space is utilized greatly, so that would be concerning. Number three, we might re-envision that City Hall space. Even a couple of years ago, before this council, we were thinking of possibly, doing something with that space, new buildings, et cetera, et cetera. So that's very problematic. And number four, the sites that you speak of, Councillor Kungle, Nathan Phillips Square has substantial gross square footage. I don't pretend to know the number right now, but adding a sign would be a sliver of percentage over the total gross square foot area available in the surface area. Same thing with the City of Guelph. Let's not leave those out and just include the ones that are at City Hall. Guelph is at City Hall, and Guelph has a massive kind of open space in front of the City Hall. Putting that sign there represented a sliver of a percentage. Putting a sign like this at Barrie City Hall, without knowing where the future lies about our transformation space, it's a significant square footage that could cripple Barrie Farmers Market's operations in the meantime, and does not capture the fact that we're putting it there to leverage the waterfront sign. As a result, I will be voting against this amendment.
Thanks, Councillor Morales. Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I think Councillor Morales took about 90% of the words out of my mouth. But maybe I'll just ask Rebecca James Reed, or through you, Mayor Lehman, who you feel is appropriate to discuss why Heritage Park was the #1 location that staff who investigated chose.
Ms. James Reed.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor McCann. I was expecting the question to be why we didn't recommend City Hall, and I was just going to draw Council's attention to Appendix D for that. The main reason that we landed on Heritage was based on our consultation with the Public Art Committee and the McLaren. But also because of the initial motion that was brought forward from council, we were trying to check the boxes of that motion. And one of those key features was to have the water in the background. So as Councillor Morales indicated, that's probably a strong reason why we didn't land on City Hall. And also the densely packed space at City Hall was a concern from our consultation with the Public Art Committee and the McLaren. We landed on Heritage also because of the close proximity to the downtown, and in the original motion, as you recall, indicated at Meridian Square, and we didn't recommend there because it was very busy with other important features for the city, but this was kind of meeting the proximity so that you could see it from Meridian. So for those main reasons is why we ended in recommending Heritage.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Maybe one more question to Ms. James Reed. Maybe you have to use some of your guesstimation, but do you not think that this would be a traffic nightmare and maybe increase the risk of pedestrians if they're lining up like they do in many other signs you could have 100 people lining up to take their picture on opening day, on prom, on graduation. Do you not see that this would be a higher risk to pedestrians and the vehicles on Collier Street and or Mulcaster?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, we did identify in Appendix D that there was some concerns about safety for the spacing of taking the picture. I don't think I would be able to speak to the volume of people because we do know that we have other occasions where a lot of people are in that space for flag raisings and vigils and that kind of thing. But I think the major concern, as we identified in terms of the distance, is that because of the City Hall area being kind of dense and where the signage was, if you had a big group of people, you would have to stand back to take the photo, and that could potentially be a danger if you got too far or too close to the intersection. So that would be more of our concern than big crowds.
Thank you, Rebecca James Reed. And maybe one question to the mover, Mayor Lehman. And I guess the question is, Council Kungl, you know, you didn't consult me at all on whether I wanted the sign there. Would you also, if your motion is carried, would you be changing number 2 and removing Councillor Mike McCann and putting your name as the primary fundraiser?
I'm not sure how to respond to that other than my comment is only about change in location.
Okay, and if we did change the location, would you be teaming up with me to raise funds for this new location?
No, I make no commitments to this initiative. This is a tabling of a change of a location and it's at the will of council.
Thank you for that. And I would have appreciated maybe a consultation, but I guess maybe you can call this it. I just want to emphasize on Councilor Morales' points about that last council. You know, we may not be in the same building. There is discussion on whether we'll be staying in Collier Street, and I think having a landmark sign with a destination City Hall unknown, which could be a small or a large factor, is important. So I will definitely not be supporting this, and I think that council should understand that this may change my motivations as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Others wish to comment on the amendment? Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Mayor Lehman. I'll be brief. I appreciate the motion brought forward by the councillor as they voted against this and trying to come up with a solution that they could support, which is what council should do. Whether it passes or not, the working together is nice to see and to try to move things along. Due to Appendix D and not being recommended, that's why I won't support it on the merit of that alone. But I appreciate the effort.
Thanks, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too am not going to support this because staff have conducted an independent investigation and have laid out quite clearly in the appendixes the rationale for each of the locations that were looked at. And to the point about the potential traffic that this sign could see, as our member on the board of directors for Barrie Tourism, I did consult with our tourism experts to try and get some background and some statistics when it comes to these types of signs. And when we look at Toronto as a prime example, it's the first sign of its type that came to Canada in 2015 as a result of the Pan Am Games. It was designed to solely be a temporary fix in their downtown core, and it became such a popular tourist attraction that the city then used taxpayers' money to then purchase and build a permanent sign. And in the first year, in 2015, they saw over 122 million social media impressions that were related to that sign. And when you consider 122 million impressions, back in 2015, the population of the city of Toronto was just shy of 5.9 million. So it just goes to show you the volume of interest that these signs can start to see and the potential issues that could arise with the volume of people, especially at the beginning when it's something new, that could end up attracting to that area. Especially too, like, I mean, you look at, there's one quote off the City of Toronto's web page from, I don't know if he's still in the position, but he was the Executive Vice President of Destination Development at Tourism Toronto, Andrew Weir. And it says the city's visual icons are vital in marketing a destination. The Toronto sign has quickly become one of Toronto's most recognized landmarks and figures prominently in our marketing initiatives, as well as in pictures shared by millions of visitors with their friends and families around the world. And also too, like, I mean, more recently, we've seen Thunder Bay that has come out with one of these signs also. And they've actually brought it to a whole other level with the use of technology and having Bluetooth enabled in the sign. Once you put Bluetooth in the sign, it then also enables to be able to transmit to people's cell phones as they approach the sign. And it could be messages around marketing, or it could be messages from the mayor, or even potentially past mayors talking about the history of Barrie and speaking about how the First Nations story of Heritage Park was a part of the portage route of the Wendat to Georgian Island. But it's through initiatives like this that this will become, or could become, more than just a sign, and it could become an educational piece for our young and our residents. So I definitely do support the spirit in this motion, but I think we have to leave staff to do their due diligence in this and not just move a sign because a small group of people don't appreciate where it's been recommended.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Others who wish to comment on the amendment? Okay, if none, I'll just make a couple remarks. I am going to support this. I recognize staff's concerns, and if you look at Appendix D, the concerns are interference with the farmers market. And respectfully, I mean, that's why we opened up the street, because the area around the courtyard of City Hall is not big enough for the farmers market. If we put the sign rather than quite the location where staff have it out on, I'd call it by the sidewalk, but rather near the flagpoles, there would be plenty of room for even a substantial crowd of folks, because I've been doing flag raisings there for 10 years, and I know that sometimes we get hundreds of people into that space, particularly around Remembrance Day and Pride and other major events in the city. I think I may have a different take than some of my colleagues on the relative level of public support. I do believe, unfortunately, there's a very significant amount of opposition to this project going into the location where it's proposed. I believe that opposition would be far less at City Hall. And I believe something like this, you know, a sign that looks like this, if we are emulating some of those examples that Councillor Harvey just talked about, I think part of the reason for it is the location at the civic heart of the city, rather than respectfully, beside a bush in the park. Now, I know council gave initial direction to say we want the lake in the background, and I think staff respected that direction. And that's part of the reason why, when you look at their reasons, you know, the reasons not to are pretty minor. And I would argue that that direction is something that certainly councillors can provide to staff. So, you know, I think if the project is going to go forward, I think City Hall would be a better location for it, and would simply reflect the concern that is not just a small group of individuals. Although I believe there's only been a, you know, few dozen or perhaps a few hundred people choosing to make comments, I can tell you that overwhelmingly the concern seems to be related to the particular location and perhaps secondarily to the idea. So I'm going to support the amendment, and I will call the question on the amendment. Those in favor of the amendment to move to City Hall? In favor of the amendment? And myself is 4, opposed 6. Okay, the amendment fails. On the main motion, are there further comments, questions, or amendments? Councillor Thompson.
Mayor Lehman, thank you. Through you, I will be supporting this for the comfort level of the motion that, or the amendment or friendly that Councillor Jim Harris brought, and bringing in the McLaren and activating the local artists and the potential of what it could do, and also the comfort in you being part of the selection of the sign. I don't think you would allow something that's hideous on our waterfront, and I don't think Councillor McCann would as well. So for that reason, and for a lot of the points that have been made, I will be supporting it based on the comfort level I have with the direction of this from its infancy to where it is now with the added checks and balances. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thompson. Any others who wish to comment? Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. It's funny. I'm going to start off by just letting you know I consulted Jim Harris, and Jim Harris said, Councillor Harris said something that was really prominent. This is love Barrie, and we need to unite as a council, and we need to show some love, and showing love for our city, showing love for our family, showing love for each other, I think is really the root aspect of the Love Barrie sign. And Stefano did a deputation tonight, and he actually triggered why this sign is here. Discussing with Councillor Thompson earlier, and Stefano was yelling at council members because we weren't doing anything under the pandemic. And I listened. I mean, I never met the guy. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what his business was, but I reached out to him and wanted to talk to him and say, listen, we don't have the ability to help small businesses because we just don't have the funding. And this is a mandate by the province. And then I thought to myself, and I tried to get creative, and I tried to find a better way. And I thought, what better way would it be to bring tourism and local tourists, local residents down to the downtown by taking a selfie at the Love Barrie sign and then spilling out into our businesses in our downtown. Staff found out that the Meridian wasn't the key location. I'm okay with that. I think that if we're going to showcase one of the best waterfronts in the world, which Barrie is one of them, having the sign with the waterfront in the background, showing our pride, and having the spirit catcher in the background, showing some of our public art, I think is super important. And it's something that I can get very passionate about. And, having passion is one thing, having visions one thing, but, having action is almost more important than both of them, because without action, it's just a dream, right? It's just something in the air. And so that's why I'm asking council, the 4 council members who actually voted no next week to really listen to me, because I really want to talk to really you only, because I want to have this as a unanimous vote. And you brought up a couple things last week that I would just like to address in the friendliest way possible. I'm an aggressive guy by nature. I'm very passionate by nature, and this is by no means meant to be confrontational. So please let me just preface that. So I have a few questions for city staff that I'd like to really clarify. I did an email out to CEO Prowse and to Dave Friery today. Is Dave Friery on the call, Marilyn?
Madam Clerk. Yep, there he is. Go ahead with your question, Councillor McCann.
So, Mr. Friery, these questions should come at no surprise to you, as I asked them earlier today, and you didn't give me exact answers. So, you had mentioned that the Love Barrie sign would be an annual cost of $15,000. I thought that was quite excessive, and I just wanted to maybe get some comparisons instead of guesstimating, because that's what you're doing. Is how much maintenance does the McLaren or the City Barrie have? Or snow removal, on the spirit catcher, the serpent, and the horn and heart is part A. Part B, how much vandalism last year did the heart and crown have? How much vandalism did the serpent have? And how much vandalism did the spirit catcher have? And maybe you could just talk to me in monetary amounts, specific as possible to those 3 art pieces / landmarks.
Your worship and members of council, the reason it's hard to come up with those numbers is because we simply don't provide winter maintenance at those locations. So we do not provide winter maintenance at the Serpent, and we do not provide maintenance around the spirit catcher as well. And as you know, the spirit catcher is something that's owned and maintained by the McLaren. With regard to the one at City Hall, you're correct. We don't have any vandalism issues there yet. And as well with the spirit catcher and the sea serpent, obviously with them being elevated, they're sort of hard to get at. So the $15,000, that is in reference to not only graffiti maintenance, vandalism, which we have no idea what that'll come out to. In Heritage Park, the sign is actually set into the park a little bit, so there will be some winter maintenance costs for that, including, in and around the sign. We are fully aware that people will probably be climbing on it, etc. So in and around the sign needs to be fully cleared to, make sure it's safe and keep the corporation safe from liability. One of the things that we're also not sure of is the electrical costs. So we have no idea what the electrical costs on this. We, during the investigation, we asked around and obviously we didn't get a concrete answer. So the 15,000 was as you said, our best estimate on what it would cost.
Thank you, Mr. Farry. And I do need to go a little more in detail because I'm reading your report right now. And let me just read for council members. Number 29, the landmark sign would be maintained in all seasons by the operations staff. This includes snow clearing, landscaping, graffiti removal, etc. Graffiti removal will cost roughly $5,000 annually, and winter maintenance would cost about $10,000. These costs would be paid for out of the operations budget. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this so strongly is because I did have 3 council members last week debate for, I don't know, maybe an hour, half an hour, that this was the real big issue. And I'm trying to relieve them. And maybe I'll just ask you a question. Is the possibility of, and the probability based on the spirit catcher, the serpent, and the heart and crown, is it possible that there'd be $0 spent on graffiti removal?
That's always a possibility, and it's always our hope.
Thank you, Mr. Farry. And with having a camera installed facing down there that I think Ms. James Reed mentioned we'd be doing, and with the actual facts that other signs within a tennis ball throw away have had no graffiti removal, I mean, I'd have to say that the possibilities could be, a lot more and a lot less, but I think that would hopefully defunk maybe some of the, or maybe give confidence to some of the council members that voted no last week that that really isn't really a strong point. And then the maintenance cost of $10,000 and the snow removal, I can't believe that, all 4 landmark signs are going to cost $10,000, so $40,000 to remove snow. So I'm just going to take the liberty to say that those costs could also be a couple $1,000s at best. Could you agree to that, Mr. Farry?
Your worship and members of council, I can tell you that the cost to maintain Meridian for the year, our annual budget is $219,000. I can tell you for a fact that, ice melt product, which is environmentally friendly, runs in around the $20,000 mark. So much like the graffiti, I can't tell you how many times it's going to snow and how many times we're going to be down there. But, we are down there maintaining the walkway, the waterfront walkway, all winter, 24/7. So if we're down there, it'll just be an additional cost. It wouldn't be actually going out and sending somebody out on overtime. It would just basically be, continuing and doing a little bit extra.
And that little bit extra could be somewhere between $1,000 or $2,000, correct? On a average snowfall in the city of Barrie.
Well, once again, I can't tell you because it's based on the number of snowfalls. So if we're out 100 times, it could be, several $1,000s. But, it just depends on the weather from year to year.
Thank you, Mr. Farry. I appreciate your answers, and I appreciate your answering with me giving you very short notice. So I do appreciate that. I should have been a little more I should have asked you earlier, so thank you for that. And just for reference, this is going to be an LED, which, as we all know, with the savings in the city of Barrie, are very low cost when it comes to electricity. I guess my next point is really when it comes to the design of the Love Barrie sign. I'm actually sitting in front of my Love Barrie sign because I think the sign behind me probably did a disservice. How the process is going to go, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Prowse, is that last week at General Committee, we passed it with a 7-4 in favor. Then today we have deputations and we're going to pass it at City Council. Then I have to go raise 75% of the funds by October 10th, 10/10. And then it's going to go out to an RFP. And then that, they're going to pick 3 designs that I've asked Mayor Lehman to be on the committee, plus the McLaren Arts Center. And I believe somebody from the public art board. I believe that Miss Ryan is stepping down. And I may next week have a motion to maybe have a few of the other people involved that are actually all in the artistic realm. So anybody who's debating about the look of the sign, well, we have no clue what the look of the sign is going to be because we haven't decided yet on the final picture. So, and Mayor Lehman, you're on that committee with me. So I just wanted to let councillors know, and the councillors that voted no, that this could become very artistic. This could become exactly what you see behind me. This could have many different options, but Mayor Lehman and I are going to represent this council and pick the final decision. So I just wanted everybody watching, and especially the council members that voted no last week, because let me just reiterate what this means to me. To me, this is inspirational. And more importantly than inspirational, it's fun. We're in a pandemic. This is going to be designed and built and installed July 1st, 2022. Don't you think the city needs some fun? And when you have inspiration and you have fun, and it's surrounded by love, which is the Love Barrie, what it brings is connectivity. It's connection, right? And that's what the sign means to me. It's connecting to you. It's connecting to our community. It's connecting to people in Australia or Russia, South Africa. It's representing Barrie. It's a really catchy place to take a selfie. And maybe I'm going to leave my closing arguments because I need all the help I can get to fundraise this. I've had amazing support, and I have a confidence level, a 10 out of 10, if not an 11 out of 10, then I'm going to raise the funds. But let me just leave you with this. I said last week that this maybe is political, not community-based, is why there's so much negativity towards it. And I'm going to use Councillor Jim Harris's advice and just come out with love and just come out with sincerity and passion. And if anybody who voted yes or no, if you don't think that you being beside that sign and you're going to inspire some little ones, some family, some business, maybe yourself, then vote no. If you don't think that you're going to connect to your city by you being a part of this Love Barrie sign, then vote no. If you don't think that I'm going to be doing whatever it takes to get every single one of you down there on Canada Day to put a picture with me at that Love Barrie sign, because at the end of the day, I didn't do anything. We did everything. I'm just the one raising the funds. And as I said last week, within 6 months, nobody's going to remember that I did anything. They're going to remember that this council brought this to the city of Barrie. So that is my sales pitch, because I do feel I need to sell this, but I'm selling you not from my head and not for some other ambition that maybe other people think. I'm doing this because I believe this is right. This is a passion project that I think we all should embrace. And please just look at yourself. Are you ever going to take a picture with the sign? And if the answer is yes, how can you possibly vote no? Thank you, Mayor Lehman.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Next, I have Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I think I've made this joke before. Councillor McCann, I think I want to buy the extended warranty after that pitch. I'll be supporting the main motion on this. And I want to start with a couple comments here. I'm still confused, and I respect council's decision at the time, but this is very connected to what we have in front of us and the motion on the floor. We supported $30,000 of taxpayer money to go to a public art piece that was the soapbox, the 3 wooden-like crates that we got universal opposition to this. There are people who are very strongly against it. There are people that are very for it. I can get it pre-COVID, it's a different time. We saw universal. We made breakfast television as almost a yikes, what are they doing up there? I think the previous time we had made major news like that was McLean's over a whistle study. So for that one, we approved. And I remember, I'm trying to remember the comments that were said by that one. The comments were, we have to respect art. It might not be what we want. The fact that we're having a discussion about it means it's working. If it gets stolen or graffitied, we have insurance, we have mitigation factors. We need to respect various factors. Other cities have done it. I believe New York and Halifax were referred, correct me if I'm wrong. So those arguments were there, and I was the sole council, and I respect council's decision at the time, but that was taxpayer dollars. And we heard a resounding universal opposition to that. And I respect councilors. They stood their ground, they approved it, and they went forward on that one. So on this project, a art sign, it's very gray area. Let's call it an artful sign, if you will, where it's being privately raised, not $30,000 of public money, not a discussion, it's being privately raised, and possibly adding up to, it's not 15,000 a year, it is up to, also depending on the winters we've had from Mr. Fryer, depending on graffiti and anything like that. Even while we were in discussion, I got a text message from someone saying, my husband will do the wiring for free. There you go, Councillor McCann, that might knock your budget down a little bit, and we can put that money towards any up to 15,000. So the fact that those monies, again, are not being raised privately, and we are, we're looking at issues that don't exist. I didn't support council. I didn't agree with council at the time, but I supported obviously moving forward the soapboxes. And if the concerns are real, either from council members or from some of the deputants, that the sign might be vandalized, that it might be damaged. I'm not hearing any motions from councilors or any comments about the soapbox right now. So for members of council who don't know, I check up on the soapbox once in a while. 1/3 of the project is gone. It's in repairs because it's been damaged, and it's been gone for over 6 months. The other 2 crates are being used by people who are experiencing homelessness as a gathering space. I don't see any concerns from members of council saying that that's a liability or an insurance claim. We should be pointing them to proper resources, not in a crate, which, by the way, does have holes on them. We don't know if they've been tested for various reasons. I'm not hearing the outcry on that, but I'm hearing all the outcry over a sign that doesn't exist, over potential future theoretical damages that have not materialized. So here is the issue, and Deputy raised this about the sign. People have promised that they're going to damage it, which, by the way, is very concerning. What we are elected, we might not be prime ministers of Canada, members of council, but we are councillors and politicians, and we are elected to make the proper decisions for our residents, and that include making the right decision even under threat of violence or vandalism or damage. For example, what happens when we have a swastika sprayed on a park? We fix it immediately and clean it up immediately. We don't remove the park. We fix it immediately. What happens when somebody damages the rainbow sidewalk? We fix it immediately and discourage people from doing the same thing. What happens when the Oro, and I wrote this down, just to get the name right, what happens when the Oro African Methodist Church in Oro Medonte was vandalized? It wasn't boarded up. They didn't demolish it. They fixed it up immediately, and I believe a plaque was erected and got positive media coverage. It was spun to be a positive one. Now, those are issues about race and sexuality and other issues, but the general theme that I'm trying to put here is when people make threats, implied or explicit, apparently the deputy said there's been explicit ones, so I encourage her to share with Barrie Police. When people are making threats that they're going to vandalize something, it should not cower a decision-making body, that being us, from making that decision. We do not give into threats. We do not give into intimidation. We make decisions based on facts. So I provided those examples on what we already do with those things. With the SES, there was a lot of people very passionate and we still made tough but important decisions. So that's what I'm going to do with this vote. Any threats of violence against the sign are duly documented. Again, I didn't see some of the stuff that Ms. Wright saw. I encourage her to share with Barrie Police. I actually encourage her in her other hat as engaged Barrie to even put out a statement discouraging people from violence towards a sign. And I'll let you know, Council, that I'm going to be bringing this back to the BIA to see if we can even have some security cameras from the BIA's perspective to make sure that the sign does not become a symbol of vandalism and a symbol of attack. So I wanted to draw the contrast on the decisions that council members have made in the past. I believe that approving the sign would be consistent with some of the same concerns that were raised and some of the same reasons why the soapbox was approved. And it's not easy to make the same decisions, but we don't let threats of essentially cowardice affect our decision making. Thank you, Mayor Lehman.
Thank you. And next I have Councillor Riepma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I have to applaud Councillor McCann's persistence and his enthusiasm for this this endeavor. I voted against it last time, and I'm going to vote against it this time. I think the evidence is pretty clear. People don't come to Barrie to get their picture taken with a sign. They come to Barrie because they love our waterfront, because we have a great downtown, because it is a great city. And while they're here, they might take a picture. And I think that's true. I don't think it's something that you can't, it's the same situation in Toronto. You happen to be there or in Ottawa or in Kingston and you take a picture. But it's not the reason for going to Kingston. I think the other thing that I think is interesting is that the level or the amount of work that's gone into minimizing the potential cost of this sign. I mean, 15,000 is not very much in the global scope of things in terms of our annual budget. The problem is that it is a lot of money because we can use it for other things, and that's my main concern is that, you know, we have other things that we can spend $15,000 on that will probably yield just as great a result. And I think that my final comment would be, yes, I've seen some emails here and there in favor, but the vast majority that I have seen and calls that I've had are not supportive of this. This is not something that we want on our waterfront. It's not something that our constituents want on their waterfront. I did support moving the sign to City Hall because I think that's a reasonable spot, but certainly not at our waterfront. I don't think a sign inspires people. I just don't. I think that it is just a sign, and that's all it is. I think we're called to run a city here, and we're called to run it wisely. And I think that putting another sign in our parks, it just doesn't do anything for running the city properly. So I'm not going to be supporting this at all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Riepma. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And I didn't speak to this at all last week, and I wasn't going to speak to it this week, but and the reason I didn't speak to it last week is I just don't care one way or the other. It just doesn't mean that much to me. I don't love the sign. I don't hate the sign. It's a sign. It's only a sign. And we spent way too much time on this. I guess where I'm coming from is that we have somebody, and if it was a councillor or a citizen that wanted to spend their time and their passion raising funds for something, we have to have a good reason to say no. And I don't think there's a good reason. It doesn't say, we don't say yes to everybody. We had an offer of somebody who wanted to build a stadium on our waterfront a couple of years ago, and we did say no to that because I think it was the wrong place for it. I think it was important. This is a sign. It's not that big a sign. In fact, where it's going to be located, it's actually not going to overwhelm the waterfront. I actually like the location. I think it's wrong for City Hall. You put a sign where the tourists already are. You don't try to attract them up to City Hall to get their picture taken. I think it is a good spot. It's not the end of the world. It's just a sign. And there's been a lot of hyperbole around this on both sides. I just think, let's just put the sign up. I think a lot of Barrie residents will hate it. I think a lot will love it. I think a lot of people will go there, graduates will go down there, get their, somebody mentioned earlier, get their photos taken in front of it. I mean, people will want it, and it'll go on social media. The one thing I worry about is, and this was addressed by Councillor McCann, is I don't like that design. I mean, it's really derivative. It looks like a million other signs. Hopefully it's going to come back, and I trust that the committee looking at this is going to pick a sign that's more unique, more Barrie than that sign. But I just don't have a good reason to oppose the sign, so I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. Anyone else wish to speak to the main motion? Councillor Jim Harris.
Well, first thing I want to do is thank Deputy Mayor Ward for his comments. I'm of similar mind. I think there's a lot of comments that maybe are a little overstated, and I do want to appreciate Councillor McCann's approach tonight to really focus on the positive energy, the positive potential. From my perspective, there's two groups that I hear from that I like the idea of the sign, and one is and as was mentioned by Mr. Agostino, the business community, and the other is the arts community. And one of the items in our package the last 2 weeks was the review of the cultural grants program, which, as we noted in the report, in 2016 was 10 years old. So here we are in 2021, and looking for ways to advance arts in our community. And when we think of groups that have struggled over the last months of the pandemic, the arts community is amongst that group. And I've said this before, I said it at the very beginning when it was shared. At the time the idea came forward, I approached the director at the McLaren to ask their feedback. I mean, there was lots of comment about this not being art, this is ugly, this is whatever. But I wanted to hear from somebody who had experience with public art and public art installations and activating art in communities. And quite definitively, I got a response that this is good. And she prepared a little PowerPoint for me, I believe I shared with council. And I believe I've used the example, and I saw in the picture from the staff report that showed the incredible art that was put on the Toronto sign by the artist Danilo from Toronto in honor of Black History Month. And I think what I like about this is the potential for it to be active and dynamic and to support local art. I mean, in the report, it talks about having an art tour, includes this particular item. That came from Barrie Public Art and the McLaren Arts Center's feedback. That's not Councillor McCann or somebody else from the business community. It was the art community talking about having an art tour in Barrie that includes this item. I would say I find the $15,000 estimate for maintenance curious. I'm thinking if we already have a crew that goes to Meridian and they do something at Heritage, how many extra minutes does it take to clear this area? I'm not sure, but I'd love to know the breakdown of the costs, because I think it would be very interesting to see. Maybe it's an overestimation, to be careful. And if it is, I would further say, if we can budget $15,000, how about we take all the savings and put it back into art, that we can help local artists take that funding in our cultural grants review program and have them be paid to put art on this, which is part of what the activation hopefully will be. So maybe the funds that we don't save, that we don't spend in this estimation of graffiti and maintenance can go back into cultural arts support for our city artists. So I like that potential, that maybe it is an overestimation, which can be used to our favor for the arts community. So, I thank you again, Deputy Mayor Ward. I really appreciate you kind of, bringing this back down a few octaves. And also just, I like the idea of the potential, and I like the idea of supporting our arts community and seeing this as an active and interesting element. And, and the numbers that Councillor Harvey shared about the Toronto sign and social media and the impressions is incredible, just incredible. So, you know what, I walked by that sign for 2 years when I commuted, and I can tell you it was an active site. And the City of Toronto has many iconic tourism attractions. It didn't stop them from having the Toronto sign. So I would say, you know what, I think first litmus test is, does he get the money raised? If he does, that shows some sort of interest from our business community. They would like this. They're putting money behind it. So that's the first test. If that happens, then our community of artists and the mayor and others who should be involved in that committee will hopefully choose a sign that is something we can be proud of. So I will support this, and I'm going to support this because of the potential. So thank you for bringing this forward, and I hope that we can get some excitement about doing this and doing it well.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Harvey, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to keep my comments short because I took up a few minutes the last time, but I think the key thing here, this is getting our city into the new age. Social media has taken on its own life of its own, and that's really what this is about. This is all about engagement with people through social media. And when you look at the way Thunder Bay has enabled their sign through Bluetooth, it also gives them the ability to reach back to the tourists that they have contacted through the Bluetooth capabilities of it to find out how their stay was. And that will also then allow the city to be able to track some very valuable data on where tourists are coming from and be able to use those numbers to be able to, for a marketing perspective, and where to reach out when it comes to advertising. Also too, when you look at ultimately it's just a landmark. We've got other landmarks in our city, but this is all about social media and things being tagged around the world, and all of a sudden people from other parts of the world seeing things about the city of Barrie that they otherwise would not have seen. And like we all know, Councillor McCann is quite the marketing person himself, and truly that's what this sign is all about, is marketing the city. And I think that's where this is really getting lost in this. And I do appreciate how Deputy Mayor Ward chimed in and really kind of brought the theme down to the reality of what this is all about. It's a sign, and there's not one penny of tax dollars going to the construction of it. So I do hope that those that were against it would consider supporting it this week.
Thanks, Councillor Harvey. Anyone else who wishes to speak to the main motion? Okay, I'll just make a few quick comments. I appreciate that I've been involved in this in the motion going forward, and I will say to council that I'll hope to see designs that come forward that do stand out, because that's my major issue with it. So operating costs, I'm not compelled that they're going to be as high as described. I think they could be. If we have problems with the sign, they probably won't be. Either way, that's not a concern for me. Will this generate social media impressions? Absolutely. Of course, people are going to take their picture with it, and I think a lot of young people take their picture with it, and that is a good thing. I think it will delight some people. It will not attract anybody to visit our community, but I think it will delight some of the people who do, and some of our residents may enjoy using it as well. I guess the issue that I want to raise is one that was actually raised by both the deputants, Ryan and Stefano, and they both used the terms around that it was innovative and there's creativity that we should see from this, and sort of praised that part of the idea. And I guess that fundamentally is the problem that I have with it. I can't remember if it was Stefano or Ryan gave the list of locations, including Friday Harbor and Blue Mountain, and of course the many other cities that have done this. And I sort of go back and say, if this was 5-6 years ago, there was the Toronto sign. Amsterdam, I think, was the first around the world to do it with the I am sign. I would probably have loved this as an idea. And you know what? I still think it can be a positive addition to the city. But the reason I don't support it is, I don't think we should be doing what everybody else has already done. That's not innovative. It's not innovative to say everybody else has got one and I want one too. I love Barrie. I don't want us to be the same as everybody else. I want us to be better. I want us to do something that's different and innovative. I want us to show that if we're going to have a landmark, if we're going to use the name of our city as a landmark, we're going to do something different rather than the same thing that so many other cities have done. So, I guess my take on it is a little bit different. I admire the fact that I think that the work that's already gone into this by staff and will go into it from the arts community, I think that's a positive addition. And I will tell you that I don't think anybody's changed their position from last week. I'm also with Deputy Mayor Ward. We've definitely spent enough time on this, and we I have other issues on the agenda tonight, which are very serious issues affecting the whole city. So I would like to move to those, and so I will call the question in a moment. But I want to be clear on the reasons why I don't support it, because I want us to do better. I don't want us to do the same, and I believe we could do better with this if we rethought it. With that, I will call the question. Those in favor of the
Recorded vote, please.
Okay, recorded vote's been requested. Madam Clerk, please conduct the vote.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I'm going to start with Councillor Rietma.
No.
Councillor Aylwin.
No.
Councillor Kungle.
No.
Deputy Mayor Ward.
Yes.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Councillor Harvey.
Yes.
Councillor Harris.
Yes.
Councillor Morales.
Yes.
Councillor McCann.
To my friends in Paris, France, oui.
And Mayor Lehman.
No.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Section G, H, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section H of the General Committee Report dated June 7th, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section H of the General Committee Report dated June 7th be adopted. This is the approval of the Transportation Master Plan. Comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Those in favor, please indicate. Any opposed? None. That carries. Well, that $3 billion went a little faster than the last 200,000, didn't it? Section I, please, Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section I of the General Committee Report dated June 7th, 2021 is circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section I of the General Committee Report dated June 7th as circulated be adopted. This is the City of Barrie Cultural Grant Review and the Capital Project Status Report. Comments or questions? Those in favor, please indicate. Any opposed? None. That carries. Section J, please. Sorry,
I think
we're on to the next. Yeah, sorry, we're on to the next General Committee Report, which is the matter earlier tonight. Deputy Mayor Ward, Section A, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the General Committee Report dated June 14th, 2021 be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward and seconded by Councillor Thompson that Section A of the General Committee Report dated June 14th be received. This is to receive the report from earlier tonight on a confidential disposition of land matter. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor? Any opposed? None. That carries. Section B, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee Report dated June 14th, 2021 be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the General Committee Report dated June 14th, 2021 be adopted. This is the motion on the disposition of land matter. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of Section B, please indicate. And opposed? One. That carries. Thank you very much. Okay, that completes the committee reports, and thank you to the presenters for bearing with us tonight. We have two very important presentations on our agenda this evening. The first is concerning a semi-annual update from Barrie's Anti-Racism Task Force, and the second presentation will be provided by the Downtown BIA. So tonight, we are pleased to have with us the co-chairs of the Anti-Racism Task Force, Esther Anyolu and Donald Carty. And it is a pleasure to welcome you both to Council. Of course, we've had the opportunity to be at a few different events and meetings together before. The presentation was circulated, and I see you both in the call. So Esther, are you going to get us started?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Good evening, Your Worship, Mayor Jeff Lehman, council members, staff, and members of the Barrie Anti-Racism Task Force. My name is Esther Anyolu. I am the Executive Director of the Women's Multicultural Resource and Counseling Center of Durham. Also, I am a resident of Barrie for the past 17 years.
And Esther, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we can't quite see you. Is it possible to tilt your camera down just a little?
Oh,
There we go.
okay.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
We could only see the top of your head. Oh, there we go. Now it's working.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. I have done a lot of work on issues of gender-based violence and its intersectionality on other forms of oppression to see how it manifests. I am here tonight with all the anti-racism task force members, and we will take turn to present to you around the work we have done so far and what we are yet to accomplish this year. Also, as member of the task force, we regret to hear about the discovering of 215 indigenous children buried in the residential school in Kamloops. And in addition, the unfortunate incident that took place 2 weeks ago, the killing of the 4 Islamic family members in London, Ontario, and a little boy still trying to survive, fighting for his life. So in terms, I'm going to present to you about the commitment we have and our mandate. Then the rest of the task force members will take turn on one of them to present. And in terms of commitment, we will help transition Barrie into an anti-racist city that intentionally addresses racism in all its forms. We will develop and act on short and long-term initiatives that progressively move us forward. We acknowledge that this is just the beginning of our journey with you. We will add more specific measurable goals as we listen to our community members and learn more. The Barrie Anti-Racism Task Force, we work with a seriousness to make substantial and transformative change, but remains acutely aware that racism is not a momentary issue. It is a systemic issue that demands sustained attention. In terms of mandate, the Barrie Anti-Racism Task Force will bridge and promote a stronger, more positive understanding and representation of the city's racialized groups through actively working with and holding accountable the police services, educational systems, health services, community groups, organizations, associations, municipal organizations, social services, businesses, labor, and government. The Barrie Anti-Racism Task Force, we focus on the following 5 action themes or action plan to affect positive change in our city. So I would like to hand over to my other task force members. Everybody will go one by one, talking about this action theme we are focusing on. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight with you.
Are you able to see the shared screen? Oh, you are? Okay. Cheryl? Is Cheryl there? She's next up.
Okay. Is Sharon here?
Can you hear me?
Okay,
yeah.
Good.
There we are. Cheryl Blondell King. I'm one of the members of the Anti-Racism Task Force. One of the mandates that we have is we consider going forward is understanding. And understanding speaks to addressing and promoting a stronger understanding of the needs of the city's racialized population. We realize that race is a social construct that can change over time. It can be applied to people who have racial meanings attributed to them as a group in ways that negatively impact them socially, politically, and economically. In a society that privileges white people and whiteness, racist ideas are considered normal generally throughout our media and our culture. the cultural narrative in the city of Barrie is largely based on this whiteness or Euro-Canadian or Caucasian people or traditions. So we're hoping to intersect that and explore that in our mandate of anti-racism, of the Anti-Racism Task Force. Thank you.
Haley, are you there?
Is Haley here? Haley?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh,
It will, I think it's just going to take us a couple seconds each time because they're unmuting us.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and sorry, perhaps, Mr. Nolan, we could just bring all the members of the task force into the call. There we go. Go ahead, Haley.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Haley MacDonald. I also am a member of the task force, and I work as the director of operations of an anti-violence organization in Simcoe County, particularly in Barrie. One of our main programs where we're serving over 1,000 women a year is the Athena Sexual Assault Counseling and Advocacy Center. One of the pillars that I wanted to talk to you about in our mandate is messaging, and that is to create and expand race-based programming, education, and resources to raise awareness about racism and the impacts of white privilege and dominance. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brandon Wu. I have been a resident of Barrie for 5 years now. I work for the Human Rights Commissioner's Office, actually for the York Region District School Board, but I'm committed to using my professional and personal experience as a member of the Anti-Racism Task Force Committee. And in terms of our connecting mandate, our commitment is to raise awareness and correct the absence of significant reflection of the city's diversity within its institution and create safe spaces for dialogue. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Irfan Tour, and I'm currently the Principal of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for the Simcoe County District School Board. I'm also transitioning to become the newly appointed Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for the Ontario Principals Council. I'm going to talk very briefly about the concept of transitioning. One of the things that we really want to try and do is support people in all aspects of community in the city of Barrie. Is we want to challenge workplace practices, evaluate and promote changes that address the needs of the city's racialized groups. And we acknowledge that this takes collective impact. It's not just one group being able to do this. All of these systems are interconnected. And so we will need the collective impact of the community to basically address these interlocking and interdependent systems. Thank you.
Massa, you there?
I'm here. Hello, my name is Massa Soni. I'm very proud to be a member of the Barrie Anti-Racism Task Force. The goal outlined in the slide titled Strengthening is to establish institutional accountability that ensures and strengthens the involvement and sense of belonging and well-being of racialized persons. Thank you.
My name is Donald Carty, and I wanted to talk a little bit more about how we arrived at these mandate, the themes and the context, and how we were informed. We synthesized a large body of information from a wide variety of sources, and not limited to, but including community and institutional dialogue, personal lived and observed experiences of its members, local, national, and provincial sources, including recommendations of the steering committee regarding the formation of this task force. So we were also looking at comparing promising practices. So we've used a number of different resources that I've mentioned here. There was the Building Framework and Plan to Address Diversity, Inclusion, and Anti-Racism in Ontario. It's a Sanchez report for Ontario Health. which help to inform us in a number of different ways. We've also used the Othering and Belonging Institute in Berkeley. They're working very diligently on, it used to be called the Haas Institute. Now they're very focused on belonging, which is becoming a big thing worldwide. And we looked at the Ontario Human Rights Commission and on the rise in hate crimes, just to name a few. Some of the articles that informed us were, oops, too far. Some of the articles that informed us were the healthcare disparities that racialized and Indigenous peoples deal with here in Canada, and the Canada Heritage Foundation and Ontario Human Rights Anti-Racism Engagement Campaign, which is what we heard. So we took that survey, we compared it with what the steering committee took and some of the data that we took from Ontario and from Canada, and we kind of synthesized it all together to come up with these themes and context.
Mr. Carty, Don, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's still on the second or third slide. I don't know if you had intended to advance through them, because I know you've covered, and the members have covered some of the slides that are in the deck, but we're still seeing an earlier one, just to let you know.
Which one are you seeing?
The second slide with the mandate.
Oh, you're still on that one? Oh,
yeah, it sounds like you're further ahead, and I don't know if our staff can help make sure we're moving through the deck.
Yeah, let me make sure. So, can you see that deck? Can you see what I'm doing?
Yep, it's now gone through the 5.
There we go.
Yeah,
Does that help now?
Okay.
We'll get it together. That's a famous phrase of my father. So some of the activities that we were engaged in, we did a panel discussion with the Canadian Roots Exchange, and where we had a discussion on building respect and reciprocity. And also we did a community coffee chat at the Barrie Public Library. So these were some of the things that we were engaged in just to get out there and sort of get our feet wet, so to speak, I guess. And then in the public awareness arena, we now hold a seat now on the Barrie Advanced Advisory Council, because the media is very important, especially local media. We're still working on web presence, and we need to expand in that social media area. And we have interviews already being set up with the Barrie Advance. I spoke to the editor-in-chief there, and every one of us will be interviewed at that point. And then we were also part of an It Starts campaign video in collaboration with the mayor and the chief of police. So some of the initiatives that we've already begun, we've given some videos to the Barrie Police Services. It's a new kind of a thing that they wanted to figure out how they could fit an 8-minute or a 10-minute video into their training program. So they have 2 of the videos. They have been approved. They're now just going to reschedule them. So the idea is we want to be able to try to create a template. So basically in these 2 videos, it's basically my story with the justice system and my story with unconscious bias. I use science, I use dialogue, commentary, and a lot of video shorts. So I try to connect with as many of our 7 intelligences as possible. The wonderful thing about this is if it goes off really nice, we should be able to roll this out in a lot of other different areas. So I'm really excited about this part of the project. So we've done that. And then also we've done a thing at the RVH with the interns on microaggressions and social determinants of health. And then we'll start to expand in those areas too, because health, policing, and education are the 3 main ones. But so far, we've really got our foot in and got some initiatives going with the player. And by the way, the chief of police is just over the top on the content. So excited about that. So this is our timeline from now forward. We're going to be getting together some working groups, organized working groups, develop methods to collect online and offline local data and feedback, identify community organizations, explore local content, training, and educational resources, which is very important. There's a lot of resources out there, but there's no local content. We want to have local stories, local figures, and have that participated. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with the Innisdale project where they did those videos. They were just absolutely wonderful videos that were put together by the students about the effects of racism in school, and I thought they were phenomenal. So we're looking at that and identifying key institutions and businesses and institutions to engage. There will be focus groups and community outreach. Now, we also have, through the Roots Exchange, we met a young lady who has helped us to put this research group together. It started off with her. She was very enthusiastic about what we wanted to do, and she really got involved. So I'm going to introduce them to you later, but the objective here is to understand, basically that's our mandate. And then we're just talking about sample populations and how the study will be designed. But the two important things on this particular one is that intersectionality theory is very important. And we're going to make sure that runs throughout the research project. And we're taking an anti-racism task force. So that means that we're recognizing the existence of racism, which is first and foremost in order for us to move on. And that's from the Ontario Health Report that I said helped us to inform the other areas that we were doing. And that's it's quite a thick report, as a matter of fact. Now look at this group of young people. Now, isn't that just incredible? Quite diverse. And we, a few of them had actually come to one of our meetings, and they're just absolutely brilliant, really excited, and they're going to be a really core feature of what we're doing. So we'll show you a bit of their timeline. So through August, we're really just writing the proposal stage. So this is where we're still going to be coming together. We're still collecting data. We still need to listen and learn. And because racism shifts, also what we'll probably be doing is there's going to be big shifts that are going to happen too. So we need to understand that because we've already moved just in these last 3 months through several different phases of racism. And right now we're at hate. So, and racism has become incredibly brutal. So that's it. I'd like to thank you for listening to us. That's the greatest compliment you can pay anybody is paying attention. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carty. And to all the other members of the task force, thank you for your work over the last 6 months. I'm sure there will be questions. I see a couple of cards already. Councillor Thompson, and then Councillor Morales, and then Councillor Congle. Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
First off, I want to thank the task force. It's really challenging times, meeting and with Zoom and not being to get together, and the amazing work you've already accomplished in such a short time. I'm very appreciative. I just have a question. Is there anything council can do to help, like obviously once the program, but I mean for your meetings or with resources from staff, is there anything that you feel that you're not able to accomplish because of the resources or anything like that we could assist you with as a community?
We really need somebody to help us with social media. We need a real pro at that, because the only way that we're going to be able to measure how we're moving is through that kind of information. So we really need to have a real digital presence. So if we can get any help on that. Now, the communications team has already helped us put together this template for the presentation with the hands, and they've really done a fine job there and helped us to organize the mandate themes. So we're going to need help there. And also, while we're doing the project, when we're into the project work, we're probably going to need some funding for some of the people that are going to be participating in the focus groups. Unfortunately, when we're looking at professional people, they generally want to get paid the same as they get paid per hour to give us some information. We're hoping that's not going to happen, but we have to prepare for that. But social media to me, because that's so important to the messaging component and how we're going to be able to measure our progress as things start to change and move on. Because we can only do that thing through volume, reach, engagement, and influence. And the only way we can measure that is with SEO. So
I appreciate that. And if you knew me, I am not the person for that. I have trouble turning my phone on. So I would probably be a disservice to you. So, but I think as a collective group, we can maybe look into something to assist the task force with that. And I just want to thank you again for all the work we've done.
Thank you, Kel.
Also, to add to what Donald has just mentioned, we would like to thank His Worship and all of you for providing Laura White to us. She's been assisting us since the beginning, so we appreciate that support. And she's there all the time we have meeting, and she's the person that connects us to you and to other people in the community. And also, please, with the research that Donna said, those youth working with us, we like to give them some form of honorarium to encourage them for the work they are doing. Apart from the consultants, we want to give some form of honorarium to those youth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Esther. And Lauren does incredible work in a number of capacities, but I know has been working with this task force from the moment that we came forward with the idea and with all of you. And it's I echo the recognition. She's done amazing work here as always.
She's invaluable. Yeah.
Don't I know it? I think I had Councillor Morales next. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and not just the task force, but Connected Core. She was incredible, and the Newcomers Awards with the County of Simcoe. Miss Lauren Wild is fundamental to many successful projects. So, Mr. Nolan, can we pull up the PowerPoint where we have the list of the young participants, the pictures and the names? I just had a super quick question on that one, Mr. Nolan, if we could.
Yep, just give us a sec, Councillor Morales.
Thanks.
Oh.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we had it.
There we go. Go ahead, Councillor Morales.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Lehman. So the question I asked is, so a couple of questions to both of everybody, essentially everybody presenting. I see a lot of perspective from, I see a lot of representation in science, basically every member here, as well as public policy, things of that, and education. I'm wondering if the members of the committee see it valuable getting perspectives of people in educational background, in engineering, in trades, in business. Obviously, it makes sense why life sciences, organizational statistical analysis, health policy, and education. So that's really valuable, and I don't discredit those backgrounds. But does the committee feel that it can achieve a more accurate, diverse perspective when it can capture, again, maybe even trades, a business perspective, or even engineering? It seems to be missing a bit in the education represented here.
That's a very good question. And that's going to be part of what we're going to be doing as a council, is gather that together for the working groups and the focus groups that are going to come later. Because there's still a lot of consultation process as we start to move through this project. And when I showed you the timeline of the task force, we're the ones that have to create these working groups. So we're looking to create some collaborations and some associations. And the reason for that is because our mandate runs out in November 22nd, 2022. Racism isn't going to end. We want to make sure that we've left things in place where this work will be able to carry on with some of the groundwork and some of the roots that we've laid, and hope that these associations and these collaborations and these kinds of things, they'll learn how to all get together so that we can spin on a dime. If something happens in the city of Barrie, we can move very quickly to do the reconciliation work and all that kind of stuff, which I think is very, very, very important. We need to be really quick on this stuff. I hope that answers the question.
Yep, that answers one of them. I'm reading the caption here, Mr. Carty. We are a group of students passionate about promoting equity and social justice within our academic work and in our communities. I'm zooming in on the promoting equity and social justice within our academic work and in our communities. I don't see representation from white males. And this is problematic because if the committee, white males. So this white males. So this is problematic for me because of this. If that quote there, and I get it, it's just a statement on a slide, but if it says we are looking to promote social justice within our academic work and in our communities, and you don't have representation from white males on this community to shape its direction, its policy, and its outreach, we are failing to capture promoting equity and social justice within the work fields and communities that white males tend to be in. And that could be a white male in the trades, that could be a white male in business, or that could be a white male that we're not capturing at least a perspective and the advocacy on. Obviously, the intent of anti-racism task force is to get diverse perspectives, but I think failing to capture white males who sometimes are not as don't jump on the opportunity onto anti-racism initiatives might be counterproductive to the purpose of the committee. What are your comments on that?
Well, I think that's, like I say, that's going to come out through the workers groups. And Erica, who is leading this, may be bringing on more people. It seems to keep growing as people seem to see what's happening. They're getting more and more and more interested. It only started with Erica. Then 2 people joined, and then another 2 people joined, and then, and it just kept going. So, I mean, we're at the very, very beginning of this journey. And we have those same concerns that you have. We know that we live in a paternal society, and we know what Barrie is composed of. And yes, we need to have those things. But then I think also, if we were to step back and look at this from a different perspective, now maybe people will have a little bit of an understanding of what it feels for us when we're not included. The racialized people and the racialized groups. People don't even bring up those questions. I'm in 2 big major councils right now that have over 30 people, and I'm the only person of color.
That's no, I love that perspective, Mr. Cardy, and as being the only member of color of this council. I think my final point, and again, we're growing. I love that energy that this is a good starting point, right? So I guess the other one would be one of the realities of the visual change in terms of race and Barrie that's occurring is really in the international student population primarily, but not always, of South Asian communities. I think I have heard very not scientific by any matters, but I'm in different community groups in the Northeast, and then I hear sometimes students that are international sharing stories of discrimination. I know Barrie today covered one with a Domino's employee about it over a year and a half ago. So I think as you guys move forward, would be also a great opportunity to capture immigrant communities, whether visiting students or immigrants of similar nature, and their desire to integrate into a Barrie community, feel supported, and also give back, right? My own perspective is different. Came here when I was 7, to Canada and Barrie when I was 9, but I'm sure a lot of recent immigrants to Barrie have a different experience, and I hope that their narratives and stories are captured and represented in this work. So thank you for your presentation, and I'm excited where the committee goes with this.
Well, let me add to that question. Do video templates for immigrants specifically, to give a brief comment about their story. They've done some wonderful work in the United Kingdom, and they did some wonderful work in Australia. And I've got some great examples of this stuff. So video is a very powerful thing. If you look at how they're stacking things in the search engines, it's videos and blogs. So the more of that kind of media that we get out there, the more potential we have of drawing people in. So, but yeah, and thank you for that, because I probably should have put that on some of the other activities that we had planned, but that's part of this video program. And we've already got the template. So thank you for that.
Okay, can
Mr.
I
Cardy,
add?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Councillor Moraz, for bringing that up. As Donald mentioned, we just started like few months ago. We are going to look, because we want every race, every identity to be represented in the work that we are doing. And majority of us are also immigrants. So we are dealing with all those issues. We are not going to leave out any. So, and also thank you for bringing that out, because if the students you've seen are the students brought by Erica, because Erica, I think she works with those students. We can also recruit volunteers looking for white men who are available to support the work that we are doing. And if you you, the council members, if you know anybody who we want to support us in this work, you can recommend the person. So as we move along, we will be recruiting more people who can support the work. And about the immigrant communities, yes, we also covering that community as well.
Thank you, Donald and Esther, for the responses. I guess I just wanted to point out, though, the purpose of the research, and I think maybe it got lost there, is to understand, and I'm reading from the slide, to understand the experiences of racialized peoples with working within healthcare, policing, municipal government, and education within Barrie, and to explore anti-racism practices within each sector. So I think we have to remind ourselves of what the purpose of an anti-racism task force is, and this work is in particular, which is to understand the experience of racialized peoples. And these are a group of students who came together on their own to do this research. And I have nothing but praise for a group of young people in our community who would come forward to do this work. And I want to make sure that's the message that comes out of council tonight. Next, I have Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Cardy and members of the Anti-Racism Task Force. A couple of questions for you. Exceptional work. I'm very interested in following along how you proceed and supporting in any way possible through my networks or health background. But I did want to touch on a couple of questions related to the preliminary research design slide. You had a quick reference piece there that I believe Mayor Lehman just talked about, which is people working within healthcare. And I wanted to ask if you had a formal definition of healthcare, and I'm going to put on my public health hat, because sometimes we take a narrow focus about healthcare and we think hospital. And as we know, there are many sectors around community support services, long-term care, and where we see individuals often in these different sectors, and frontline healthcare workers or public health nurses and others of the like have very different experiences. And I was wondering if you could share more a bit about if that was just a generic referencing around healthcare, or if there is only specific sectors you intend to look at.
No, it's for me personally, my mother is in long-term care. One of the stories that I shared with the RVH interns was the fact that they did not understand mom's culture and they didn't respect it. It's not a very good story. I don't tell it anymore. I've recorded it, so now I only play the recording. I also work part-time in healthcare, because if you're not in the arena, how could you change anything? So I work 2 hours a day, and I deal with seniors that deal with mild to moderate cognitive behavior. So I'm very embedded in that. That's why I'm also involved in the Barrie and Area Ontario Health Team Planning Table, to make sure that we're represented there, all the racialized groups, and all the other subtle nuances that come with that as well. Like the fact that, the city of Toronto just declared anti-Black racism a health crisis, and that was just a year ago. And that eventually will probably spread out further once we understand how big stress is. And that's actually part of some of the presentation template. It actually shows some of the microaggressions that we put through. So it's really quite encouraging. Did that answer your
It did, thank you. So I guess to maybe follow up, is public health seen differently, and are you looking at public health leaders in this?
Yes. Oh yeah, doctors. Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll be going through the whole thing, from all the ancillaries and all that. It's all very important. Healthcare is probably one of the biggest employers here. I'll give you an example. We have a presentation with the Diversity and Inclusion Council at RVH in a couple of weeks to talk specifically about white privilege. And this just happened within the last week. So, and white fragility, that's already been written. So we're getting out there. We're getting out there. We're getting some.
That's great. And a comment I'll share, and this is part of an invitation to connect with any of you directly. I am seeing this focus of attention. So I'll use the Alzheimer's societies in Ontario as an example, where racial equity training has been made available, and the focus was on leadership as well as governors. And I was wondering if you saw governors from a decision-making aspect around where this training would be applied to now or in the future, if you saw it as applicable. But I am seeing this focus on governance, and I didn't know if you were able to comment on that.
There's a report that came out. I mentioned that Sanchez report is quite a thick report, and that was put together for Ontario Health. It's a great report. I think everybody should read it who's interested in healthcare or interested in diversity and equity. But as we start to pursue that and move along, some of those things will probably be put in play in a lot of the different other areas that we're working in. I think the important thing is that we're going to start to see that there's a lot of overlap in a lot of this stuff. But it's just because a lot of this stuff that we're dealing with is structural. When we're in these big, huge institutions like that, we're dealing with structural and systemic racism. So it's not that it's a hard nut to crack, it's just nobody wants to talk about it. So in the beginning, there was a little bit of reluctance, even where a lot of medical places wouldn't even talk. They were kind of mum's the word, you know, and that goes with some of the other communities out there too that are doing their own work. They're kind of very private about it and holding in. So we've got some trust factors that we have to build up, especially because the announcement included the mayor's office and the police. And it's like everybody already has their ideas about what that's all about. So there's some challenges there, but you know what? What's life without some challenges, right? You know, we didn't come this far to only come this far.
And thank you for that. And I have another question, if I may.
Please, before you continue, Councillor Kanji, I don't know what your next question is. I want to add something to this healthcare. There are different components of healthcare. And when we, as you mentioned, when we think of healthcare, everybody's mind goes on hospital. Hospital is only one sector of healthcare. Also, with the COVID-19 pandemic, last year, we saw what happened with some of these residential homes for the seniors. And it is another component of healthcare. Then we have community centers. We have community organizations like CAMH and mental health institutions, community organizations that are dealing with mental health issues. We have a huge crisis with the mental health issues. It was there before. With the pandemic, it has worsened. So those are all components of healthcare system. And also now we see a lot of people who resigned their job or who lost their job during the pandemic. They are staying home, caring for their elderly parents or caring for their children. So there are different forms of healthcare system. And also we have to look at the impact of systemic issues, racism, as it affects Black community, Indigenous, SGBTL+ group, different group, religious group, age group, class. We have to consider all those components and the impact. You know, racism and discrimination is a form of violence against people, and it affects those communities' mental health. So, thank you.
Thank you. My last question on this, and building off the comments about the It Starts campaign and where you've already leveraged social media and been very present. For us and for those watching, how do we follow you along? So you referenced the mandate until I think next year, 2022, and building the social media presence and having some already done some work through the Barrie Public Library. How do we follow along with you? And would you be looking at leveraging the It Starts resource page through the County of Simcoe that has some content already there tied to that, or would you be creating or looking to create something that is more local facing? Just wondering about how we look to, or when we would look to revisit the work that you're doing, and how do we follow along?
I think that'll probably be done through the social media and through the website we hope to create. The idea here is that we want to be able to have local resources. We're already going to take the dismantling racism workbook, which is being used by the federal government. We're allowed to use it as long as we mention them as part of the copyright. We're going to take that and we're going to make that our own. So we are going to take both of those documents and we're going to create a working group for that. And we're going to add our own local content. So that will be a piece that will be available to anybody. So it'll be available to small business, big business, institutions, so that people can do a lot of this on their own. We spend a lot of time out there for free, telling people what it's like to live, you know, in a racist society. And the idea, if we want people to understand, then we have to give them the resources, not a whole big long 13-page thing. Here's all the resources, go do the work. If I give you a workbook and you sit down and have a cup of coffee and work on it for half an hour or 45 minutes, then that's going to help. And then it'll also, because it's going to empower you, hopefully that'll put you in a position where you can call out some of these things that you see that are happening. That's where the real work is, how to call it out and how to deal with it when one of your relatives makes a racist comment in front of your children, because the children are blank slates. My oldest granddaughter, who's now 26, when she was 9, we lived in a community that it was like the United Nations. And every Wednesday, because I worked from home at the time, every Wednesday, all the kids in the neighborhood came to my house. We watched a movie, we had popcorn and all the rest of that. But at the age of 12, all of a sudden, racial consciousness hit. And she come running home screaming somebody called her the N-word. And then that started the whole other thing. So these children are not coming by this on their own. They're coming by this by the culture we live in, the stereotypical visions that we get from movies, from the media. It's like, I'll tell you an example why messaging is so important to me personally. When I was looking at the flags that were flying about our heroes at City Hall, there wasn't one person of color on any of those flags. Didn't make me feel like I belonged. And I was working in healthcare too, and I was out there risking my life just like all the rest of the people in the front line. Because that's another thing that COVID brought out, and which is a business thing, and that's exposing the exploitable labor. So most of the people that were in these lower social economic scales, or mostly people of color, are in those places. So that's another area that just opened up. So when I talk about racism shifting and the focus shifting and all the rest of that, all of a sudden this exploitable labor thing came up as well. So we've got a lot of work, but it's I don't know. I don't think I want to use the word exciting, but it's going to be incredibly challenging. So yeah, I hope that helps.
That does help. Yes, thank you.
Thanks,
And
Councillor
also,
Congo.
I forgot to mention the increase in gender-based violence during the pandemic. It was a crisis before the pandemic, and the pandemic has heightened the incidence of gender-based violence and the impact of it on women's mental health. So all those issues. And that's why, due to the work I'm doing in the area of gender-based violence, I had to push the task force for us to include it, issues of violence in our community, whether it is bullying happening in schools, and also adults get bullied. So, and also violence is a crisis that the community we need to tackle, deal with, apart from issues of racism and other forms of oppressions that are happening in communities.
Thank you. Councillor Owen.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. And thank you so much for that presentation. And thank you to all the members of the task force for the work that you're putting in. It's amazing work and important work. I'm wondering, I realize it's early stages and you're working on the website and social media, which is fantastic. If there are people who are listening right now and maybe want to get involved somehow, how can they connect with the task force?
Through the website that's on the City of Barrie, there's a link in there. Unfortunately, it says Mayor's. I was talking to Lord about seeing if we can get that changed. So that's going to come, but so that we can get it changed so that people can because as the word gets out now, because now there'll be media interviews and things like that too, we want people to know that anything that they can do to help us helps us all. And we want as much community participation as we can possibly get. And we do need people in a lot of different ways, young people too, especially. And we'll do that. Right now, they can contest through that link on that anti-racism site. It's in the top right-hand corner.
That's great. Thank you. And one other question, again, I realize it's early stages of the work, but wondering if you've engaged already or planning to engage with local Indigenous communities, organizations, nations, whether it's the Barrie Native Friendship Center or Rama Nation, Consolidated Nation, Georgina Island Nation. Is that part of the plan?
Yes, as we said, we are using the intersectionality approach. We don't want to leave any group. So they are part of the work we are doing. And we always put the issues affecting the Indigenous community on the table. And also, personally, I have done some work with the Barrie Native Friendship Center. So yes, they are included in the work that we are doing.
That's fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing what comes next.
Because
Thanks.
if we look at the intergenerational issues experience the community has faced over the years, issues of missing Indigenous women and girls, and issues of residential school, which also blew everybody off the ground last month, that they gave us the statistic. They discovered the bodies of 215 children in the Canlop. So we can't leave the community. They are the major community we are working, we are doing work about. So we are focusing on in this work.
Thanks. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Mayor Lehman. I know it's council and we're only supposed to speak once. I just wanted to, I sent Donald a private message. I had a local marketing company reach out to me, a digital marketing company, Silva Creative. They will do all your media and they'll take care of you. So if you give them a call tomorrow morning, they will definitely assist you. This is their wheelhouse.
That is great.
Wow, that's fantastic. Oh, you just made my day. Wow, you're gonna make me cry. Yeah. This is great. Oh, I love it.
Councilor Thompson, can you repeat the name of the company, please?
Yeah, it's Siva Creative. So they've been doing all the work for the Ethnic Mosaic Alliance as well. So familiar with some of the work going on in Simcoe County right now, and that's really generous of them to want to support the task force. So thank you to Mallory and Siva, who no doubt are watching tonight. Others who have comments or questions, Councillor Jim Harris and then Councillor Harvey.
Great, thank you, Mayor Lehman, and through you, thank you for the presentation, Esther and Don. It's incredible work, it's important work, and I was just curious, one of the items that's recently been in front of council at the end of May was our community safety and well-being plan. And I did note that item 9 like on the was noted the anti-racism task group as an entity. Just curious, and certainly you've made great points today about the connection between safety and racism and health and racism. And we've had some unfortunate reminders of those, as you mentioned recently as well. Just wondering, as I know you're very busy and you have lots on your plate, if you've had much of an opportunity to dig into the community safety and well-being plan and to really, understand where there's opportunities to, address these issues, because obviously the plan is self-explanatory, community safety and well-being, which really touches on the key items that you referenced today as being of concern. And I just want to know if you had a chance to dig into that, if that's part of the plan, and where you could see that plan being enhanced because of the work of the task force. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Harris. It's not something I'd have to say that we've had any discussions about, but I think it's something that's very important, and we'll definitely dig into that. We just haven't used those terminology, because that's the other thing too. One of the biggest things we were trying to find, and the hardest thing for us to do, was to find the right language. That was because the language changes so much. So part of what we're doing includes this community safety and well-being, because if you look at the very last slide, that's what it's all about. It's all about feeling belonging. We all know what it feels like to not belong. And the idea here is for everybody to feel like they do belong. Because when you were talking about that sign with Barrie on it, I thought, wow, what a wonderful opportunity to put the diversity, the face of the diversity of Barrie on that sign. I thought, wow, now that would be a wonderful photo opportunity. But of course, I'm thinking through this one lens. But
Okay, to add to what Donald has said, community well-being and safety and well-being means making every member of the community to feel a sense of belonging, to make sure that everybody, we care about each other. That is what that safety and well-being means. And also in the work we are doing as members of the task force is also to see how we can promote that and to have the members of the community, like the institutions we have identified, to buy into that, so that to make their institutions more accessible. You have to look at in your institution, wherever you belong, you have to look around and say, who is here and who is missing? Even when I log in, I notice that you have only one female. So the rest of you are guys. And also there is no diversity. It's only one person, Councillor Morale, who is like from diverse communities. So that is, once we become conscious of that, because that's one thing I noticed living in Barrie for the past 17 years, it is still like so predominantly Caucasian everywhere you go. And now we, the diverse communities, minorities, we've been moving. As I mentioned to you, I moved in Barrie since 2004. We say, oh, let's come to Barrie to explore. And also I find a street that has my name. I managed to convince my husband, let's buy a house so that it will be my street. So I live on the Star Drive. So, we settle in Barrie. We said, okay, this is the place we have settled for the long. We live in Ottawa, we live in Durham region, we live in Scarborough, we live in Toronto, but we leave those places 3 years, 2 years, we move out. But we are here in Barrie for the past 17 years, and I don't think we are planning to move. So that kind of thing. So we need to make the community to be more accessible so that other communities, immigrants and racialized and anybody who comes can feel, okay, I belong here. So that's what we want to see. That's why we are doing this work. Thank you.
Just maybe one final comment, Marilyn, and thank you to both of you for the incredible positive energy. And Esther Street, what a great idea. There's no gym or there's no Harris Streets. I'm out of luck, I think, but finding my street. But I really appreciate your comments. And I did note that one of the risk factors in the community safety and well-being plan under holding together is discrimination. So I really look forward to all the work that you will do to help bring our community together. And certainly let's see if we can find a way to activate some art on that Barrie sign for a picture, Mr. McCarty, so that we can promote diversity. That would be a wonderful first art project for that sign. So thank you for your time and your efforts. I really appreciate it.
Well, we did have one breakthrough just recently.
Thank you, Councillor Harris.
There's some other, I forgot what they call, there's another word for this. There's 60 interns coming into Barrie, and they just sent me the picture from RVH, and what a wonderfully diverse group. It's absolutely incredible. I'm so excited. I said, finally, we got a picture that shows a variety of people. So he just sent me the pictures, I think 3 or 4 days ago. So I'm real excited about that too. So that's sort of kind of the way, once we start to see people and they're not invisible, we notice people, but we don't see them. And that's the important thing. We're able to see them. When we see them, we see their humanity. And when we see their humanity, We understand they want basically the same things that we want, and we're not apt to hurt them. The other part of it is too, is that I always like to do this. You know, I says, you know, we run into people say, well, I don't have a racist bone in my body. And I said, well, yeah, but I bet you right off the top of your head, you can think of some stereotype of some racialized group just right off the top of your head. And you have no idea how it got there. It takes exactly 7 seconds to form an opinion about a racialized person. 7 seconds. That's how quick it is. And this is all unconscious. That's what I was talking about, children not having this racist I'm a kind of a science guy, so all of my the videos and things that I produce, especially with the police service, has a lot of sciences in it. A lot of science in it. So
Thanks, Donald. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Your Worship. First, I'd like to congratulate the group. It seems like you've put together one heck of a qualified group with a lot of knowledge on various subjects. And I think you've put together quite a aggressive timeline. So I'm not going to hold you to March 2022. But as someone, as a youth, I grew up in Toronto and Brampton, and obviously those are two very diverse cities. And I know one of the big things is, along with education, then comes understanding. I don't know if it's too early to ask this question or not, but how do you envision the educational piece of your plan being adopted?
Well, for me, I think how I outlined it before is that we want to try to come up with some local content, and we can distribute this through a number of different ways and put it together. We want to create our own workbooks. We want to be able to create our own videos. So that's part of that education program. There's also some work that's being done. We haven't broken in there yet, but we do have some educators on the force, and is trying to get inside of education. But because we've got all these school boards to deal with, I'm also a part of another community council where we have all the school boards that are part of that. So once we have had a meeting where I'm able to put out this information about the anti-racism task force, I'm sure that they could become a part of this coalition that we're trying to put together too. And then we can probably share some materials. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no, actually that does help. And I think too, an aspect to possibly look at would be some educational purpose or opportunities within our public institutions. And I really do look forward to see what your recommendations are when it comes to our public institutions here in the city. So that way we do have better representation of all of our communities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, we have two people who are from the school systems, Brandon and Afan. I don't know if they will like to comment on this because it is their area.
Absolutely. Irfan or Brandon?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. You know, it's a great point around the impact of education. And I can share you from the perspective of the Simcoe County District School Board. We've been working for many years around educating children, around various identities, around systemic discrimination, social justice, oppression. I'm gonna put something out there is that perhaps maybe it isn't our children that need to be educated, but a lot of our adults.
Right.
Thanks, Irfan. Brandon, if you can hear us, say anything you wanted to.
Yeah, hi there. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I would echo Irfan's comments there. As much as work that we do in the education system, and we do see a lot of issues with it, it's almost like the second we step out, those issues are magnified because a lot of the adults we have in our society now didn't go through the education system, but this type of learning was happening, and they're the ones beyond the education system making decisions. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of that change that has and continues to happen within the education system, but I think a lot more of that focus, a big part of our focus as a task force is beyond just the education system.
Brandon, we can hardly hear you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I don't know what's wrong with the internet, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think we did get most of it, although you were cutting out a bit there. But thank you all for your answers to that question. Councillor McCann, sorry, Councillor Harvey, was that all your questions for the task force?
Yeah, no, that's great. I actually look forward to see where this takes us in the near future.
Me too. Councillor McCann, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I've got a question for Darnold.
Yes,
Donald.
I'm here.
Donald, are you looking for some new friends?
Always looking for new friends.
Because you got music to my ears, Donald, the man with passion in this committee with passion. Yeah, I think earlier you watched the Love Barrie, and you know, that's obviously a passion project that I've taken on under my wing. And I think about what you're doing for the city of Barrie and what you're doing globally. We definitely are going to become real good friends, because I want to get involved, and I'll do what I do best, which is kind of market and sell. And I think I can be a partner of yours, and I would like to bring you on board and have you to be a big instrumental piece on the Love Barrie sign, because this is exactly what the Love Barrie sign represents. It's being inspirational, it's being fun, and it's all surrounded with love, because that's what we're all talking about, is loving each other, and most importantly, connecting to each other in a positive way. Just listening to all the committee members, and when you brought the Love Barrie sign, I was watching all the council members' faces. They all lit up. It was great. And I just thought, you know what? You and I need to be friends. We need to meet. And I'd like to meet you too, Esther, and just be a part of your program in a inspirational way. And I got to raise $200,000, and I can sure use all the help I can get by showing how diverse this sign can be. So thank you very much, and I look forward to connecting to you both, okay?
Thank you, Councillor McCain.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the work of the task force? Members of council? Okay, I'm just going to conclude then by making one request of you, and that is that we would love to, I think, regularly follow the progress and work of the task force, and especially this research group. And Donald, as of tonight, thanks to the connection through Councillor Thompson, but really thanks to the generosity of Siva, it sounds like you're going to get some help on the social media presence. But I think, you know, this tonight, when I worked to set this up 9 months ago, this was exactly where I hoped we would end up. And I think you know, if I'm not mistaken, none of the 7 of you have sat on a city of Barrie committee before. Maybe one, but I don't think so. And the fact that the process, the open call that went to the community for people who could contribute to this effort gave us 7 such knowledgeable people from diverse backgrounds is really reflected in what the task force has started to tell us about tonight, and the work that you're committed to continue to do. And the other thing that I can't let it pass, because I want there to be no question that I am delighted, and I believe members of council are delighted, that a group of students from Barrie, themselves quite a diverse group, would want to come together and do a research project that you will guide them on the experience of racialized employees. That's just amazing. I'm trying to think of another kind of community-based effort where young people got involved with the city task force and committed to doing a bunch of work on their own. So I will reiterate Councillor Thompson's offer that if there is support needed, and I know you mentioned the focus groups and the work that the students themselves are going to do, if the work has value, it should be reflected in the compensation for that. And of course, this work has enormous value. So let's talk about that. I mean, I know the police chief and I, when we sponsored the task force to begin with, created a budget, but we will talk about how we ensure that that very valuable work is properly reflected. And then I think I just wanted to close by thanking all 7 of you. There were a group of people that helped us to put this task force together before we went out and asked the community for volunteers to come forward, for all of you to come forward. and I want to thank them too. They gave us invaluable advice, but boy, did that advice turn out well. They said, make sure these are new voices and make sure there is an opportunity for people who are already working in this field to bring that expertise to the city of Barrie. So Brandon, Cheryl, Haley, Irfan, who am I missing, Massa, and of course, Donald and Esser, thank you for the work you've done. And we look forward to seeing the work of the task force going forward. And I'm sure all of us on council will look forward to that and will continue to support your work. So thank you again.
I have one comment. You said you would want to, now that the students meet 2 or 3 weeks. Now, they gave me I'm able to join the meetings. I'll put out a call to them and see if they'd be okay if any of the counselors or yourself would like to be able to sit in on one of those research meetings.
Yeah, please do.
And then I can send the link to Lauren if they agree to that. They might be too nervous. I don't know.
Well, having been on the call that you did with them, the webinar you did about a month ago, you and Esther, and some of the students were on that call. I recognize some of the names and certainly the organizer. I don't think they'll be too shy about talking about this subject. They are passionate about it, and I'm so glad to have the passion of those young residents to help us learn in this community. Okay, thank you so much for your time, your presentation, and we should move on to our other presentation tonight. So thank you again.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, the council members. Good night.
Good night.
And thanks to all the task force members as well.
Good night.
Okay, our second presentation tonight is by the Downtown Barrie BIA. It's entitled Creating a Safe and Vibrant Place to Shop, Live and Play. So I will now call on Kelly McKenna, Executive Director of the Downtown BIA, to provide the presentation to Council. Ms. McKenna, welcome to Barrie City Council. And the floor is yours for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Mayor Lehman. I'm just going to pull up my slides to start. Please let me know. I don't think you can see them yet, can you?
Yes, we can. We can.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. All right. Well, good evening, Mayor Lehman, members of council, and the residents of Barrie. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you this evening. My name is Kelly McKenna, and I am the Executive Director of the Downtown Barrie Business Association. I started at the BIA on March 3rd, 2020, just 2 weeks before the pandemic began. Oh, hold on, sorry, let me just see. There we go. So before I get started this evening, I thought it would be fun to start with some fun facts about the BIA. It was established in 1972, and I currently lead a team of 2 dedicated staff. The organization operates under the direction of a volunteer board of management who are downtown businesses, property owners, or their representatives, as well as 2 Barrie City councillors, currently Councillor Jim Harris and Councillor Sergio Morales, who is also the chair of our board, serve on the BIA Board of Management. I'd like to thank you both for your leadership and your commitment to the Downtown BIA. Our membership does fluctuate. However, at last count, it was recorded that we had a roughly 625 property owners and business owners in our boundary. The commercial property owners are taxed with a separate levy that basically help to support the operations of the BIA. I'm so sorry. Let me get this one. Why is this not turning? There we go. So Section 204 of the Municipal Act defines the role of the BIA as overseeing the improvement, beautification, and the maintenance of the municipally owned lands, buildings, and structures within its boundaries, while promoting and marketing the area for business and shopping. So basically, we help to create the environment for our downtown businesses to thrive. And so why are we here this evening? Well, thank you to Councillor McCann for the invitation to speak to you this evening about the BIA's governance model, the vision, including suggestions for possible boundary expansion, and the objectives for the remainder of our 2018-2020 term of council. And again, I would like to thank you for this opportunity. And while I fully intend to speak to each one of those items, I first wanted to take this opportunity to recognize and commend the resilience, creativity, and courage of our BA membership. Over the last number of years, the downtown Barrie businesses have experienced many hardships, starting with the transformation of Meridian Square, and then the Dunlop streetscape, and we thought those were hard times. However, COVID-19 hit, and since then, almost all of the businesses have been closed to some capacity. But what I have seen in my short 14 months is that they can also be nimble in adapting to every changing situation. They have pivoted so many times that the word gives them hives, but they have survived, and even some have thrived. And for this, I would like to celebrate each one of the businesses downtown. Okay, so back to the purpose of this evening, and to address the BIA Board of Management Governance. BIAs are both a corporation and a local board of council, and they have a dual role under the Municipal Act. Some BIAs in Ontario establish policies and bylaws that govern their structure and operations, while other BIAs formalize these in the form of a constitution. And since March 2020, governance for the BIA has become a top priority. A governance committee was struck and began modernizing the BIA constitution. The BIA constitution is currently being updated under the direction of Barrie's Law. This is part of the evolution that the BIA is undertaking to be more accountable and more transparent to its membership. Accountability and transparency is really paramount. Our society is evolving, our community is evolving, and so is the BIA evolving. And just like council, the BIA's governance must adhere to the local board responsibilities, such as procedural bylaws, code of conduct, hosting public meetings. It's really important to note that the majority of our BIA board members really have a small business background, not a municipal one. And so moving forward, training on these municipal provisions, policies, procedures, bylaws, this will all help to orientate not just the board, but the staff and the BIA's relationship with the municipality. Also, a new BIA constitution and bylaws will be presented to our membership at the next AGM, which we are looking forward to hosting this fall. So another item that you asked us to speak about this evening was the BIA's vision of a possible boundary expansion. Within my 14 months at the BIA, the Board of Management has not raised this matter, so I can honestly say we don't have a vision or a plan for boundary expansion at this time. The current board really remained focused on the reopening and the recovery of the downtown. However, as a reference for the current BIA boundary, I think it's been since 1977. It roughly stretches east to west from Points to High Street and north to south from Collier, Ross, and to Simcoe Street. I've also included the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing Handbook on Ontario BIAs in the presentation materials. basically as a starting point for the discussion on how to expand a BIA boundary. It is a municipal process, which is very time-consuming and demanding of the municipal clerk and city staff, and it is not recommended by our association to begin this exploration during an election year. However, should the boundary expansion be the will of council, we would look forward to beginning these discussions in early 2023. Now, our term of 2018 to 2022. Every Board of Management is elected for 4 years. And the 5 strategic goals of the BIA established by the Board of Management are keeping the downtown clean, safe, and beautiful with projects like the Lakeshore Muse Bins or the Bright Spot Project, as well as hosting events and marketing the downtown like Barrielicious or Localicious that we just hosted. And of course, focusing on the governance and our new constitution, as well as residential development and property reassessment. As our downtown intensifies with new developments, how can the BIA best support its membership? So, certainly at the beginning of this term, in 2018 to 2020, it was very normal times. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I just missed my cue there. You will recognize these photos. Back when things were normal, there were events like the craft beer barbecue, there were promenade days, Noella Festival, and of course our Wednesday night movies at Meridian Place. However, since I have started at the BIA, times have been anything but normal. And so the BIA really had to pivot its operations to quickly respond to the needs of our membership and our community in these unprecedented times. And so we launched COVID response projects to help our downtown businesses reopen and recover. And some of these projects were such things as our Downtown Heroes campaign, where our downtown restaurants served over 600 lunches to the frontline workers at Barrie's long-term care facilities. And we also had a reopening PPE kit cost share program with our businesses to make sure that they had the right equipment, right signage to reopen their businesses safely. Another program that we launched just in response to COVID-19 was the Lifeline e-gift card program. This was developed as a way to channel much needed cash to our businesses who were forced to close their doors and did not have an e-commerce solution available. The businesses receive 100% of the funds, and the BIA covers the transaction fees. We currently have 64 participating businesses, and we have directed over $37,000 worth of cash during these COVID times to our businesses as well. And of course, Open Air Dunlop. In 2020, we piloted the closure of Dunlop Street East over 5 Saturdays. This allowed the public to continue supporting the small independent businesses downtown, but in a safe, physically distanced environment during COVID. It was such a success that we expanded the initiative in 2021 to deliver Open Air Dunlop every Saturday, all summer long. And a special thank you to Council for also endorsing 2021 Open Air Dunlop. Last week, we pivoted too in order to kick off our first Open Air Dunlop, and I'm happy to report last week was a great success. Now, as we look ahead to the BIA's objectives for the remainder of our term from 2021 into 2022, we will remain in uncertain times with the changing health and safety regulations. Looking ahead, the Downtown Barrie BIA will remain flexible, responsive, and effective to our membership. As far as operations, we are excited to continue with Open Air Dunlop this summer. We will continue to serve on the Mayor's Economic Forum and take part in the West End Task Force as we look forward to piloting Open Air Dunlop on Dunlop Street West this summer. We will remain focused on our membership and look forward to hosting our AGM. With regards to the Board of Management, governance and training on the Municipal Act will be top priorities, as well as addressing the capital commitments for Meridian Place. And with a staff of just 3, we could not accomplish all the things we have without our membership and our community partners. So first of all, I'd like to shout out a special thank you to our members who show up to our bi-weekly membership huddles and who help guide us with the direction from the office on how we can help best support you. And of course, thank you to our many partners who have helped to make some of these great projects happen in our downtown, like the City of Barrie with curbside parking, or the Barrie Police with the Bright Spot project, and Tourism Barrie, as I mentioned, with Barrie-licious, Local-licious projects. And the many art groups who have helped to beautify our downtown. We are really looking forward to working with you again to accomplish many more great things in our downtown. And in closing, I would like to say this is a very exciting time for our downtown. We are already witnessing the cranes going up for the residential development, and this is really good sign that people are investing in our downtown. There is a vision, there is a sense of hope for what is to come. And if I may, if we have enough time, I'd like to leave you this evening with our call out to Barrie residents to join us on Saturdays this summer for Open Air Dunlop. And maybe Mayor Lehman, I'll just make sure I'm okay with time. And if I may, play the video. Thank you.
This summer, discover downtown Barrie with Open Air Dunlop. Each Saturday, June through August, a portion of Dunlop Street will be closed to vehicle traffic and open for you to explore the downtown core. Support local in a safe and socially distanced environment. Take a self-guided art or bike tour with the family. And when it's time to refuel, downtown Barrie's award-winning restaurant scene has you covered. Don't miss Open Air Dunlop all summer long in beautiful downtown Barrie.
Well, thank you very much,
everyone.
This
summer, discover.
Sorry, thank you, everyone. That's another call out. Join us every Saturday all summer long. Looking forward to seeing you downtown Barrie.
All right. It was good enough to see again. Thank you, Ms. McKenna, and I really appreciate the fast work, just as we get into questions here, the fast work that your staff did to pivot to be able to start Open Air a week early. I know that when the announcement came last week of the moving up step 1 to Friday, that allowed you to do that, but you guys, pivoted. I know it's been overused very quickly, and the results were incredible. I mean, we saw downtown, you could feel the vibe on Friday as businesses got ready, and then you could really feel it as people were able to walk around with that much extra space, able to do it safely, but be able to visit and come onto a patio. And you know, I know some of the retailers, that was literally their first day open in many months. So thank you so much, and for the presentation. Questions of Ms. McKenna? Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that presentation, Ms. McKenna. I'm quite sure there is no connection between you arriving at the BIA and shortly thereafter COVID arriving. I'm quite sure there's just no connection at all. And I'm really glad that we had such a great time on Saturday. The weather worked really well, and you could just feel the buzz on the street. It was just a great place to be. And I'm forecasting beautiful weather for next Saturday, and hoping everybody comes down in the city as well. You know, we don't have to paint a great picture about it. I mean, the BIA has had some issues in the past. We're all aware of that. And I was really glad that Councillor Morales said, we're going to work on that. We're going to improve. My question to you is, what can we as City Council do to help the BIA to do what you need to do? Is there anything specific that this council should be sort of getting into your corner and helping you with?
Great question, Ms. McKenna.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Lehman, through you to Councillor Riepma. Yes, there is certainly some areas that we could use assistance, and that would be around knowledge and training of the Municipal Act and the local boards of council. As I mentioned, most of our board members, as most of the staff, come from a small business background. And so, that key understanding of how this corporation also exists as a local board it is relatively new to our operations. And so, training on that would be very helpful from the city.
Thank you for that, Ms. McKenna, and I hope that our staff heard that and that they will reach out to give you whatever support we can possibly give you, because we really want to be in your corner. I guess a totally different question, but now that things are opening up, do you have any plans for doing more programming on Meridian Square? I know that we do some programming there, but in a very sort of personal way, I'd like to see that square humming with musicians and whatever almost all the time during the summer. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, certainly this summer, we're taking a very cautious approach. And as each phase opens up according to the provincial restrictions, the BIA has plans to add additional types of entertainment, to the space and to the event. My understanding was prior to my existence, there was a Meridian working group that both the BIA and the city and some other partners, Tourism Barrie, I believe as well, work together to plan and coordinate the entertainment at Meridian Square. And so I really recognize we're in COVID and that has not sat for all intensive purposes, but I think it will as soon as we can, and looking forward to getting that programming back up and running with our partners across the city.
Okay, thank you for that, because there are lots of musicians and entertainers in the city that would love to get on that stage and do their thing. So I think that would be a really great thing for you to pursue further. So thank you for that, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Riepma. Other questions for Ms. McKenna? Councillor McCann.
Ms. McKenna, thank you for the presentation, and I've got a real hard-hitting question for you right now. How is our councillor Serge Morales doing as chair in the BIA?
Thank you, Councillor McCann. Through you, Mayor Lehman, I believe he might give you a run for some of those marketing skills.
Actually, you know what? Sorry.
No, go ahead, Councillor McCann.
Actually, that was actually my segue, because I actually have the privilege of seeing Councillor Morales, Chair Morales, on social media, and I think he did a fantastic job. And I think tonight's theme of the meeting has really been inspirational, fun, and connecting. And I think Councillor Morales did a fantastic job connecting the BIA to the whole city of Barrie. And so I was having a little fun with you, but I did want to acknowledge that we do have a council member that is the new chair, and I kind of knew the answer, but just wanted to see if you had anything to add for that. So
I'm very grateful, for his leadership as well as Councillor Jim Harris. Again, it brings that element of gap knowledge that we have around local boards and how the Municipal Act, runs. So we always rely on our councillors to help support us through those difficult times during meetings. So they are great.
You get two great guys on your board. Maybe it's a question maybe I have for you about maybe connectivity, right? The relationship between the West End Task Force and the Precinct Task Force and the BIA. I know it's COVID and I know we're sitting sometimes in limbo and a neutral, but could you maybe give me some insight on how that connectivity is happening, how that's happening, and give me a little color on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So Deputy Mayor Ward is leading the West End Task Force, and we've had 2 meetings to date, and both very progressive, learning about the development and some of that residential intensification that's going to happen on the West End. In fact, at the last meeting, Mr. Silverberg from the Debut Condos was on and talking about the demolition of the buildings happening this summer. So it was a perfect time to connect with him to make sure that our open air Dunlop West End pilot does not happen at the same time as the demolition of the older buildings. But yeah, it's just a great partnership. I think everybody is really moving in the same direction, to really capture that growth and a real positive feeling downtown.
Kelly, people are going to think that we actually planned this because now you gave me my other segue to my other question is how is the development? We've got over $1 billion going to be investing in our downtown, hopefully in the very near future. And you mentioned Gary Silverberg. I mean, there's a lot of other high rises coming in. Are they communicating with you? Are they talking to you? Is there potential investors from other parts of the world connecting to you and you having to sell Barrie and why maybe they should develop Barrie, or at least why they should maybe investigate Barrie in the downtown a little more?
I have to say that hasn't happened really to date. I mean, this West End Task Force, I think, is going to start many of those introductions. We're just really happy to be at the table and help to promote the downtown as a great place, to live and work.
Well, let's hope maybe that the Love Barrie sign, somebody from another part of the world will see it and hey, they want to invest in that city. Maybe the last question I'll have for you is, has there been any discussion on the BIA about maybe hosting the New Year's party at Meridian Square? Has there been any thoughts on that and spilling over into the water?
Yeah, we work really closely with the events department at the city just to make sure that everything we're coordinating in the downtown, whether it's on Dunlop or at Meridian, that we are first of all abiding by the health and safety regulations that our health unit is mandating, and that is our top priority. But moving forward, really excited to, if we get there at the end of this fall with our vaccinations and the province allows us to throw a Christmas party and a New Year's party, the BIA will be 100% behind that.
Kelly, if you don't mind me getting a tad bit personal, I tell all my sales guys and all my team that, most people don't ever remember on what you say, but they always remember on how you make them feel. And I tell this to you from the bottom of my heart, that every time I talk to you, I just leave our phone meetings saying, wow, there's a person that's got a lot of passion and there's the right person leading the BIA. So I just want to let you know as a personal, that's how I feel about you. I think you're doing great things. As Councillor Ritma had suggested earlier, unfortunately, the COVID kind of hit right when you started working. And once we get past this pandemic, I can't wait to see what you and the BIA and Councillor Morales and Councillor Harris do. So thank you for all your work. And I did want to talk about expansion, but you made it pretty clear in your presentation that probably is going to be a discussion in 2023. Thank you.
All right, Mike McCann quoting Maya Angelou, this meeting has had everything. Any other questions for Ms. McKenna? Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Ms. McKenna, could you describe your engagement process with the businesses and the property owners? And what I mean by that is there's been a lot of transition from business property owners, like people selling buildings and moving on, whether it's one individual one or somebody who owns a multiple, and you're also having a lot of healthy turnover. What I mean by that is people know that the BIA has seen this evolution from a small town kind of association. Think of an ag hall for anybody from rural Ontario or rural really anywhere, where everybody knows everybody and things are just done the way they are, to exciting new business owners, exciting new businesses, people from outside Barrie, people, like Stefano, who transitioned from the construction industry to, kind of an innovative new brand. This is happening a lot. And what kind of happens is usually directors or staff of, in other cities, they kind of just stick to who they know, what they know. What have you done in the last, the year and a half that you've been at the BIA to engage people who were either not engaged before or people who are new to the scene and really understanding what they need from the BIA?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Morales, and Chair of the Board, through you, Mayor Lehman. I have to say, I think the engagement piece has been really key, and especially during COVID, we were not seeing our businesses on a day-to-day basis. We weren't popping in for coffees and lunch and small chats. So what we did for these times was create our membership huddles, which is basically a Zoom meeting like this. We invite our board to also join, as well as our members, and we host that every other week. And so this year we've hosted 10 already, which is kind of good because we've been in communication, but also sad to think that that's how long, our businesses have been closed. And that engagement is key. On those meetings, we hear from them, what their struggles are, and specifically how we can help. So like I said, I sincerely appreciate all that engagement from our members, because it typically happened face to face, and so to jump on a Zoom meeting has been a bit of a shift, but we've certainly had an increase in the engagement as well from our members. So that's been a success.
Thank you, Ms. McKenna. And to kind of add to Councillor McCann's comments about you, what I've heard from businesses, some that have been there for a long time, especially in the West End, and might have felt unengaged, and new ones who didn't know who you were. There is nobody in the downtown core that doesn't know who Kelly McKenna is. There is nobody that doesn't feel comfortable reaching out. And I know in the first couple of months, even while COVID was kind of a big deal in 2020, yourself, Stacy, Kristen, were knocking on doors. It almost would have put Councillor McCann's door-to-door sales to shame, and just really kind of hitting the pavement. And that's great, especially as we emerge out of this. The other kind of question that I'll ask is, members of council, when Open Air Dunlop kind of was being crafted as a vision in the fall of 2020, it was risky. I was nervous because this has been an issue, and Deputy Mayor Ward and Mayor Lehman will know, people have been wanting Dunlop to be pedestrianized in some capacity, either permanent all year, seasonal permanent, or kind of this hybrid model inspired by something like a promenade days for decades, right? And it's always been that fear of longtime business owners saying, you will destroy my business. You can't do this. I'm afraid of change. If it doesn't work out, the failure of my business can be on the city's hand. How did you navigate that tricky political, economic development, small business perspective, and as well as liaisoning with the city? Because it wasn't just an initiative from the city. Lots of kudos goes to Ms. Miller, Ms. McAlpine, Mr. Prowse, and all of their people that report to them on this initiative. It was a logistics, work of art, but at least from this desire to push this forward, I wasn't the one pushing this. It really was you and some other board members, because I was a little bit shy on this. So could you share with the board kind of what allowed you to do something that this, or be part of the team that finally got something done that had been talked about for decades in Barrie, finally has been done, and I envision it being part of downtown Barrie for decades to come?
Well, it certainly wasn't my idea. as you mentioned, Councillor Morales, this has been something from the day one I started. We need to pedestrianize. I certainly, that little birdie was always in the back of my head. Knowing that, there was a big passion for this to happen. And we had the new streetscape, which also allowed, for our wider sidewalks, our bicycle racks, areas to sit. I mean, trees, it's just beautiful. So it was also a really good time to show it off. And so when we piloted it last year, it was really just a pilot to make sure that, we didn't hinder any business operations for our businesses downtown, that we could handle the logistics and the safety of everyone. So, we just tried it 5 times last year, and this year have been able to expand it to 15, as well as the West End. So, I'd like to see this as an ever evolving pilot, if you will. Can we get to 2 days a week? Can we get to 3 days a week? But that will all be, in collaboration and in consideration of our membership and our business downtown, and how that can also be of benefit to them.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. McKenna. No more questions, Mayor Lehman.
Sorry about that. Still on mute. Thanks, Councillor Morales. Any other questions for Ms. McKenna? Councillor Congle.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Ms. McKenna. Thank you for the presentation. I wanted to compliment the whole team. I've seen Stacy and the rest of the team in action, but at RibFest and otherwise, and making good use of available redirection of where we're having RibFest, and knew that was a great success, and that was early on. So great to see that you were able to carry on through the strength of your team and your local partnerships. So I do compliment you on that. I wanted to actually ask you a bit more about the AGM and public involvement or accessibility to that meeting. So, I'll acknowledge that we've heard a lot, and there's been a lot of attention on the BIA. Through your presentation, you answered a lot of my questions around what will be coming forward at the AGM around the reworking of your constitution, and a lot of effort and focus put to that, the reach out to the city this evening and city staff about the Municipal Act and that whole dynamic, because it is interesting about how the interplay about how do we function together and the relationship that we have that connects us through the act. So I was wondering if you could add any more information as to if there's been any if there's anything for those watching tonight, and even for myself, I'd be very keen to be joining in virtually if need be in the fall to the AGM to be hearing more about the next steps and how you're coming through a bit of these governance initiatives. Is that going to be a public meeting? Are you aware of that? I know sometimes at a governance level, it's at the will of the board at times to just have that with the members, depending on how you define members versus the public. So I was wondering if you could speak more to how information will be shared publicly tied to the AGM.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Kungle. And yes, absolutely. We are planning, we've actually set a date of November 1st. So we are working towards that diligently. I have also been attending our other local boards AGMs just to see how they operate, in this virtual world. And I'm sure even in November, we might have to have a hybrid option. But absolutely, as I mentioned, accountability, transparency is really key to our success moving forward. So I would encourage the public to join and watch. Of course, just the members are able to participate and vote on the motions. But yeah, the downtown is for everyone and every resident in this city. So we would welcome that public engagement and of course our members there as well to see us through with our motions and into our vision for our next term.
That's great. Thank you, Ms. McKenna. And lastly, it was nice to hear that your governance positions through some change, just creating the opportunity if you or members of council on the BA board want to share anything around membership. I know you talked a bit about the number of members around the board and representation. We've heard that Sergio is now in the position of chair. Is there anything else we should appreciate or just be aware of if there's been a change of any seats or roles around the BIA board?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of turnover recently, recently, and then over the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, maybe this is the most tumultuous term of the BIA's history, you know, and there's been certainly a lot of change in its board of management as well as its executive director, but change is good. And it often opens up new opportunities and new paths to explore. So I'm hoping to lead that team to do just that and really bring out the best of the downtown.
That's great. Thank you, Kelly.
Councillor Jim Harris.
Great, thank you, Mary Lehman. I'd be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to recognize Kelly for her hard work and coming in at the beginning of the pandemic and soldiering through and supporting our businesses in downtown has been greatly appreciated. So, and all the board members as well. So thank you very much. 625-ish businesses or members, pardon me, it's a lot. And not everybody agrees. And I think Councillor Morales gave a great example, the best example of maybe the average citizen with the excitement of the open air Dunlop would think, wow, every business must be on board for this, but that's not the case. I remember last fall when we surveyed members, it wasn't a landslide. And so I think it's really important for people to know that your job isn't easy and not everybody agrees with everything that the board or the leadership chooses to do. And open air Dunlop is actually one of those examples. So just want to know if and thank you for your guidance of that ship and courage to push that through, because I think it's been very successful and an important addition to our downtown community. Just wondering if you could speak a bit about how those tensions are managed. You know, that's a lot of interest, 625 different interests and not all aligned. So what does the BA staff? You get caught in that, obviously trying to make all businesses happy and do the best by them. How do you manage that? I mean, you're very skilled, you're very positive. I just want to, how do businesses reach out to you if they don't agree with maybe a direction that is moving forward?
Yeah, no, thank you, Councillor Harris. And for sure, I mean, we can't please all of the people all of the time, but we certainly you know, want to create the best environment for all of our businesses. And so certainly, you know, surveying them, getting out on the street, you know, pounding the pavement, if you will, and really getting into each one of those, you know, businesses and having that conversation. But that's obviously not the only way. We also have a Facebook membership page. So only our members are part of a Facebook group where they can communicate with each other or certainly, you know, get anything in front of the staff. And as well as we're very communicative, having a weekly newsletter out to our members. And of course, these huddles, you know, over COVID have been really critical to taking all of those opinions, all of those different expectations, you know, and somehow mediating that and crafting something that comes out as a win-win situation for everyone. And so that's what I like to always aim for. And like I mentioned, it's not always easy. We will upset some people, but I think we are open to our members and always very interested in learning how we can help them more.
Great. Thank you for that. And thank you for your work. And no further questions, Mayor Lehman. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks. Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Ms. McKenna. Thanks for the presentation. Actually, this is more of a request than a question. We had an emergency meeting last Tuesday. I've heard some mixed opinions on the times we had come to. I would just love if you'd be able to come back to council or reach out to Mayor Lehman on if we got it right. I've heard some people would have rather closing earlier, and some people were happy with the way we got it. So just sometimes it's nice to get direct feedback, and if we could assist you on getting it right if we haven't.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Thompson. I know we will need to do some pieces of engagement over the next little while with our businesses and coordinate the open air Dunlop closure. But again, you know, really looking forward to that and finding a solution that benefits, you know, both our businesses, but keeps the downtown safe at the same time. So the staff will be very focused on engaging our members over the next little while to ascertain an answer to that question for you.
Thanks, Ms. McKenna. And just following up Councillor Thompson's question, I did hear from some of the larger establishments, actually their concerns around the late hour. So it would be really good to know how broadly that view is felt, whether those proprietors of the larger establishments, a couple of them that that's the view among all of them, that 2 o'clock is too late for the patios. If it's it would be interesting if we can get a sort of cross section. So I don't know what kind of response you typically get to those surveys, but I'm sure we'd be happy to help get that feedback rather than just the ones who take the time to contact members of council with their concerns. It's often those who have concerns that speak up rather than the ones who were happy, but it'd be good to hear that. Councillor Thompson, did you have any other questions? Okay, any other members of council with questions for Ms. McKenna? Okay, then the last one I wanted to ask is you sort of dropped a little preview in there, a sneak Easter egg around Open Air West or Open Air Dunlop West. Is there anything more you could tell us right now about plans there? I know this is something a lot of people are keen on, notwithstanding there are at the moment quite a few more patios east of Dunlop. Incredible places like Limoncello and Mexico and others east to Bayfield. There's those restaurants west of Bayfield. I'm sure others that might consider it, let alone places like the north who have a wonderful patio on their own property. So anything more you can tell us about Open Air Dunlop West?
Yes, absolutely, Mayor Lehman. So yeah, this year we're going to pilot the West End. And again, this is, you know, one of those gradual projects just to make sure everyone is benefiting from it. But we're planning on sort of kicking it off with our Canada Day long weekend. So really from Toronto to Mulcaster, with exception of sort of the north-south crossroads, will be closed to vehicle traffic and open to the public to come and enjoy in a physically distanced and safe manner. So we're going to do that over those 4 weekends in July. And really, we're starting to work with our businesses down there, thinking about some ideas about how they can animate the front of their storefronts to really help draw more people to the West End and attract more people into their businesses. So it's something we're going to pilot this year in July. So yeah, stay tuned for more information to come.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for answering all of council's questions and for your great work, especially given your arrival 10 days before a global pandemic. But sometimes, you know, what seems like unfortunate timing is the good fortune of our community to have you in the job through this very difficult time and bringing your incredible commitment and energy to the success of our downtown going forward. So thanks for the presentation tonight. And with that, members of council, I think we will move to inquiries of staff. Deputy Mayor Ward, do you have any inquiries of staff? Members of council, any questions for staff? Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I did have a couple to staff. I think they're aware I'm coming at you with some fireworks questions because although we approved that motion for the change, I know we've got several members of the public asking some questions about timing, enforcement, and communications. And I wanted to just manage any assumptions about this. So with Canada Day around the corner, can staff confirm that this bylaw then would be in effect? And we will be trying to get some communications and information out. And if staff could also speak to the approach that they would recommend about how we might be able to help educate and inform residents.
Not sure who best to answer that on staff, but I want to start with the clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. We anticipate the bylaw being approved by City Council on June 28th. And then since it's such a close timeline to Canada Day, our staff will likely just communicate and educate members of the public since it's only a few days later. I saw Ms. McAlpine wanting to jump in as well, so I'm not sure if she has anything else to add to that.
Ms. McAlpine.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, through you to Councillor Kungl. I think it is important to note that June 28th is the day when the bylaw itself will be presented. So you've approved the motion, but not the bylaw. So that is something that we'll have to consider in the communications. And as always, we're grateful to work with our partners at Access Barrie to ensure that the community is well informed. But it is a relatively tight time frame, so compliance is always our first goal rather than any more stringent enforcement.
Great. And follow up, if I may, Your Worship, through you to Ms. McAlpine. So even though the bylaw is not yet approved, our existing bylaws around noise and the current bylaw, even the regulatory bylaw that talks about fireworks, identifies the noise parameters, so the time at which you could let off a firework that might create a sound impact. Could you just remind the public or reconfirm that this is about setting off fireworks that would be on the specific holiday until 11 p.m., that existing bylaws are in effect related to noise?
Mayor Lehman, through you to Councillor Kungl. In a quiet zone, no fireworks are permitted even on holidays under the city's noise bylaw. In the rest of the community, they can be set off on the specific holiday, currently the 5 days, but based on your motion this evening, there will be a bylaw presented to change that to the specific holiday, and that would limit the discharging of fireworks and to not occur past 11 p.m.
And then through you, Your Worship, again to Ms. McAlpine, my awareness is, and I'm seeing a lot of photos of those that have still, garbage that's been found around fireworks that have been let off. Is there a practice that the public should be aware of with respects to disposal? My understanding is that flares and/or any type of firework material after being set off should not be put in the garbage. There is a different process for that type of matter.
Mayor Lehman, through you to Councillor Kungl, I would refer that question to Ms. Miller as the waste management aspects are covered by her team. I'm not sure if she has those particular details with her at this time.
Ms. Miller, where should residents dispose of used fireworks?
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Kungl, I'm sorry, I'll have to follow up with an email to staff tomorrow, to you tomorrow. I don't have those details tonight. Unless Mr. Friary is on the phone and he has the answer.
I think Ms. James Reed might. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Kungl. Because we had been asked that question earlier today, I do have that information. On our website, we do have a lookup tool. So where does it go? And if you enter fireworks into that tool, it indicates that you may not dispose those in garbage recycling, or the landfill at any time, and that you must hold on to the expired flares until they can attend a flare disposal day that's usually run through the local police department.
Thank you, and I'll leave my questions there and look forward to when we move forward with the bylaw around what communications can get pushed out in time, and especially some reminders to residents about if there are concerns, who to call and how to address any of those issues. But thank you for answering those questions.
Thanks, Councillor Congo. Just because there has been a little bit of confusion and surrounding the specific wording in the motion, in part, I think, because the way the language is drafted for the bylaw, I'll just ask, I guess, Ms. McAlpine to clarify, with Council's decision tonight and the new wording of the bylaw, on which days would residents of Barrie be legally allowed to use fireworks? Nope, you're still on mute, Ms. McAlpine.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. So the specific days are established in the motion, and let me just pull that up for you, but they include New Year's Eve, the Lunar New Year, Canada Day, and I'm sorry, the list isn't coming up while I'm on this call, so I will certainly provide that as.
No worries. I can just go to the clerk, but there was the reference to 5 days prior in the motion, I think, is the piece that has caused some interest.
That's in
people
the
are not
current.
sure what that means. But it's in the motion tonight as well. So, Madam Clerk, can you just specify which days people will be able to legally set off fireworks in Barrie if, well, this is passed?
Okay. Thank you, Marlena, and through you to members of council. They will only be able to set off fireworks on the day of the event or for the duration of the event, because we're adding Diwali and Lunar New Year, and sometimes those celebrations take period over a few days. So they would be able to set them off for the duration. But for instance, like Canada Day, Victoria Day, it would just be on that particular holiday.
On the night itself.
On the night of the holiday itself, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Congo. Was that it for your inquiries of staff? Yep. Okay. I did see another hand. Inquiries of staff. Councillor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. To the appropriate staff member, thank you, Ms. Miller. We heard from Ms. McKenna about, somebody said we'd like to see performers on stage, maybe other kind of artists. I know I had a discussion with her over the weekend, the fact that our busker program is now digital right now based on, we can only takes us some time to kind of program that, and the province is changing things weekly. Now, if the opening goes well, cases continue to go down, we get an okay from the health unit, and if it was the will of council to maybe move from a online bus program, I guess, Zoom, you can only get so much engagement, to doing it again in person. Here's my question to you. Is it logistically possible if that was the will of council? And if so, what would you need, and what would be the ramp up time to moving from a digital bus program to doing it in person? I'm sure things such as registration and maybe setting spaces aside that are appropriate and distancing. I know that it's more complicated. I'm wondering if that's even possible.
Ms. Miller.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to Councillor Morales, staff in Economic and Creative Development and our special events team certainly are pursuing all of those ideas and will continue to do so. We will update you as soon as there is an opportunity. And if there is an opportunity to make it happen, we certainly will do so. I would just say that we have to wait until those regulations come. And the moment that they come, we will be able to respond and give you an update.
Perfect. So you don't need any council direction at this time for that. It sounds like it's already underway.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, I don't believe that we do. We know what's possible, and as soon as we have direction, we'll be able to tell you whether or not we're able to put anything different in place.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's it, Mayor Lehman.
Thanks, Councilor Morales. Any other inquiries of staff, members of council? Okay, announcements, Deputy Mayor Ward.
No.
Any other announcements, members of council? Councilor Aylwin and Kungl.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I do have two quick announcements. The first is about a Ward 2 cleanup that's happening this Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's this wonderful group of residents who have started this Facebook group called Clean Up Barrie, and they're going around to each ward and setting up cleanup days. So you can find the details on my website, keenan.ca, under the info tab and Ward 2 cleanup. So again, that's this Thursday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The second thing I want to point out is a public information session about the Allendale Transit Mobility Hub and the Downtown Mini Hub. That's happening June 23rd at 6 p.m. So it's a virtual public information session on the transit hubs, both at Allendale and downtown. And you can also find the link to register on my website, keenan.ca.
Thanks, Councilor Owen. Councilor Kungl.
Thank you, Worship. So on behalf of the Communities in Bloom Committee, some great ideas and initiatives were discussed at the last meeting and highlighted in a City of Barrie media release on Friday. I did want to highlight and again encourage businesses and individuals across Barrie to register. That's a free process, your gardens, and it will be virtual, but we are hoping to get in and showcase your photos. So some quick reminders. The theme is hope is growing, and the international color of hope is yellow. So whether or not you use yellow, highlight your yellow, but also we would love to see your gardens and the ways in which you're also supporting pollinators. So the other piece to be mindful of is that the registration form is available on the city website, but please register your property, your business area by July 23rd. And what's really exciting, and I'm keen to see some photos coming through, is that there's also a Little Bloomers portion, ages 6 to 14. We're hoping to see these youth get involved and share photos of their flowers, container projects, vegetable gardens, window art, or other art projects. So please share how you think you'd like to get engaged this year in Communities in Bloom.
Thanks very much, Councilor Kungl. Councilor Morales.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Just wanted to announce the upcoming open air Dunlop Street this coming Saturday as well. One big draw that wasn't there last week, and I'm just pulling it up here to confirm the details, is that Mitsubishi, give me a second, Mitsubishi Barrie, yes, Barrie Mitsubishi, my apologies, is going to be present, and they're doing a Future is Bright contest. You can win a 2-year lease on a brand new 2022 Mitsubishi Outlander. So the winner will actually be announced July 19th at 2 p.m. at Meridian Square. So tune in to Cool FM to hear if you're a lucky winner and also to enter there. So that's something to draw people in. There's lots of new businesses opening up their patios and having a presence as well. There's something that we're kind of having a brainstorm about. We are hearing from people that the restaurants are open and they're open late. That's great. But some of the, I'll call them eateries. So think of the coffee shops, think of the, Philadelphia sandwich kind of places where they're not kind of like a sit down, but they're not kind of takeout. Those kind of in between places, they're closing a little bit earlier. And people are telling us why, I want to grab a coffee at later in the afternoon. I want to grab a kind of a quick bite to eat. So if you're a member of the public and you want these establishments to be open, vote with your money, vote with your dollar, reach out to them. And give them the confidence for them to invest in labor and make sure that they can be there for you. Also, I did Facebook Live, I think, for the first time last weekend. I'd never done it before, and it went so there might be some guests, all-star guests this weekend. So we'll definitely be engaging more businesses in that regard. And I just want to echo what Councillor Alwyn said earlier about the cleanup. He walks the talk on that. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, Councillor Alwyn, was driving to Ward 9, and he was there, boots on the ground with bags, cleaning up literally a tough hilly area of Ward 2. So that's not just one of those things politicians say and then another organization is doing the work. He was literally out there getting dirty on a beautiful sunny afternoon. So anybody who's supportive of that, help out cleaning Ward 2, and then go buy something to eat and support our downtown. And we're, as the mayor said, I think on social media a couple days ago, Barrie's back. Let's be part of that.
Thanks, Councillor Morales. Others who have announcements? Sorry, who's got announcements? Oh, nobody else? Okay, good. Then I'm going to move quickly so we don't have to extend past 11. I would like to note that we have proclaimed June 15th as World Elder Day, June 19th as World Sickle Cell Day, and June 14th to 19th as Yes in My Backyard YIMBY Week. And thanks to Redwood Park Communities for the lawn signs that they've distributed for that campaign. The City of Barrie is inviting residents to get involved in Communities in Bloom by submitting photos of their gardens. This year's Communities in Bloom theme is Hope is Growing, and I know Councillor Kungl, you touched on a number of these, so I won't give any more of it, but I did on behalf of the staff. Please want to encourage people to visit barrie.ca/communities in Bloom and be part of it. The city has started a process of collecting data for our first ever business data survey, and we are looking for input from local businesses. This is something that larger municipalities do. They have a comprehensive business survey. Barrie is big enough now, and Invest Barrie has the resources to tackle this summer. It will be particularly important coming out of COVID. So for those watching, businesses in commercial and employment districts will be contacted by the city either by phone call or door to door. Pending COVID regulations. It's anticipated to be completed in August 2021, but you can help us by visiting buildingbarrie.ca/business data survey. Of course, as the Ann Street Bridge construction continues, the bridge, of course, is now down and it will be on detour for some time. Ann Street's closed, of course, from Edge Hill to Donald. There is a free shuttle available. It stops either side of the bridge. I know there were some teething pains with that new service, but I understand they were able to sort out some of the issues around that free transit service. I would note June is also Bike Month, great time to try riding a bike for the first time and explore our cycling options, including many of the new lanes that we have installed over the past few years on key routes around the city. It's also Seniors Month in Ontario, and this year's theme is Stay Safe, Active, and Connected. Senior centers are closed, but of course, there are lots of ways for our seniors to stay safe, active, and connected. And there's more information on Seniors Month activities at barrie.ca/senior centers. Open Air Dunlop will continue every Saturday during the summer months with Dunlop Street closed east of 5 Points for now, and then we'll have pilot west of 5 Points, as we heard tonight. Coming up in July, the city is offering 2-hour free parking until the end of June, just as we do the final finishing touches on the streetscape project. I won't go through the situation for all of the service reopenings, but there's one that I wanted to make note of because it went into effect today on the booking system. So there's been a real sort of bit of debate around the province in terms of the sports fields. Ontario, when they specified gatherings at a maximum of 10, did not specify what kind of an area you needed to have a gathering of 10. So municipalities, I can tell you cities across the province, all did something different. Some said it was okay to have 4 groups of 10 on a soccer field. Some said 2, some said 3, some said 1. The City of Barrie, in conjunction with the health unit, have agreed on 2. So baseball pitches and soccer pitches can be booked for 2 groups of 10. But I would note that you should contact our rec staff. What that, of course, allows us to do is a kids sport team, you know, almost always between 10 and 20 on the team, whether we're talking about soccer or baseball, and that allows the whole teams to go to one facility, even though they have to be using other ends of the field. So for all you coaches out there, I know we've communicated this through the sports associations, the soccer club and minor baseball and so forth. But for those watching, that will be the way we're booking fields for the duration of step 1. And with that, I will call on Deputy Mayor Ward for the bylaws.
Myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills we read a first, second, and third time to state and finally passed. Bills 56, 57, 58, and 59.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 56, 57, 58, and 59. Comments or questions? Seeing none. Those in favor of the bylaws? Any opposed? None. That carries. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 60.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 60, the confirmation bylaw. Comments or questions? Seeing none. Those in favor? Are any opposed? None. That carries. Just before we adjourn, I would note tomorrow night we have a full evening as well. City Building Committee starts at 5. We will break if there's time before Planning Committee at 7. So we will see you tomorrow night. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Riepma.